Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday night live call in show and video call in show. Welcome aboard. We got a lot of news and politics to cover today, and welcome to Carl's Opinion, where we provide an in depth analysis and commentary to the most recent local news and national news and international news and politics of the day. So, welcome aboard, everybody, and we got a lot of stuff to get to, so let's go and get to it right now. We got a rocket attack targets U.S. Embassy in Iraq. This is coming on the heels of the State Department's evacuating non-essential personnel from the United States Embassy in Baghdad, and it looks like maybe some of the calls for there was a danger warnings, and I mean we have a lot of intelligence people on the ground in Iraq, so it's not like we don't have people who can actually go out there and know what's going on. And the one major general from Britain, I guess we're not going to hear from him saying, "Oh, we're not picking up any increased intelligence. Oh, we're not seeing any kind of movement on the ground from any of the Iranian militia groups. We see them, but nobody's getting ready to do anything." And I believe that was a week ago. So hopefully we'll get a nice interview from him too, so he can say, "Oh, yeah, except I didn't realize about those rockets. Yeah, I kind of lost track of that one." But every once in a while, a lot of people don't like John Bolton. Think he's a war hawk. And he is. He is a war hawk. There's probably not a place he hasn't seen that he doesn't want to invade. But, every once in a while when people say, hey, look, there's a threat level going on here, we have a lot of intelligence in Iraq. We've had a lot of intelligence there since 2003 on the ground. We have a lot of contacts, a lot of people we talk to all the time, a lot of people we've paid to be informants, provide us real-time intel. And, I guess the warning signs were there. They were saying, hey, something's about to happen here, and we got to keep an eye out, be vigilant. And it turns out possibly they were right. A couple of rockets landed. There was reported initially just one rocket landing, and then the report jumped up to two. So not good, And possibly because of the fact that we were on a heightened alert, then possibly we were able to keep them from mobilizing any more forces. It's not like one of those things where they knew that as soon as they launched those rockets, they'd immediately be targeted. They'd immediately be scoped in. We had probably had drones in the air, be able to try to track people down. So they probably couldn't bring too much into the area, knowing, these people didn't sound like they were obviously not suicide bombers. They're launching a rocket. So they're the kind of people that necessarily wanted to die for the cause. So it wasn't like they lined up, 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 of them and then fired them off. They fired off one, maybe two at most, and then peeled out of the area before we could get a hold of them. So it's a dangerous area over there. The Iranians are feeling their ways, and when you hear reporters talk about, gee, should we believe the U.S. or should we believe the Iranians? It's like that's even a question mark. Oh no, let's believe the Iranians. Why would we believe the Iranians? When have they ever been honest with anybody in any dealings around the world? They never have been. So, and then we could start doubting our own intel, like Trump's doing some nefarious action there to, start a war or something like that. And Trump's the last person who wants to start a war. People are probably going to be saying, oh, Bolton put this together. It's a black flag operation, to try to put the drumbeats to work going forward. I mean, I don't buy that. It's one of those things, one of those conspiracy theories where, nobody can keep a secret in Washington except for these conspiracy theorists. Then everybody can keep a secret. Then nobody can, tell the secret. But anytime there's a secret in Washington, it seems like generally most people find out pretty fast. It seems like there's not much you can hide. Somebody wants to get it. Somebody wants to get paid. A lot of these newspapers and outlets pay people for information. A lot of people, who are against the administration, and let's be honest, Bolton's got a lot of enemies within the administration itself, and outside of it, and in the State Department, et cetera. So if there was some information that somebody was going to leak, I'm sure this story would get leaked, and there may be a story getting leaked in the next couple of days. But let's go ahead and take a look at this story. We got a lot of other stories to cover, so let's take a look at this one real quick. All right, rocket attack targets U.S. Embassy in Iraq. Okay. This is from the Washington Times from today, May 19th. Carlo Munez. U.S. Embassy in Baghdad was the target of a rocket attack late Sunday, days after the Trump White House ordered American diplomatic personnel to pull out of the country. Iraqi military officials confirmed Sunday a single Katyusha rocket landed near the parade grounds inside the heavily fortified Green Zone in the Iraqi capital, which is home to the U.S. Embassy as well as the main headquarters for the U.S.-led coalition battling the Islamic State. Hold on a sec. All right. Let's see. But eyewitnesses claim a second rocket also landed inside the green zone, according to unconfirmed reports. No casualties were reported, and no group has claimed responsibility for the attack, the first against a U.S. diplomatic post in Iraq since the American mission in the southern port city of Basra was hit last September. We are aware of an explosion in the international zone outside of the U.S. Embassy compound in Baghdad on May 19th. There were no U.S. or coalition casualties, and Iraqi security forces are investigating the incident, Captain Bill Urban, U.S. Central Command spokesman, said in a statement Sunday night. Mr. Trump took to Twitter hours after the attack, warning Tehran against any action against U.S. interests in Iraq or elsewhere. If Iran wants to fight, that will be the official end of Iran. Never threaten the United States again, he wrote. State Department officials acknowledged in a separate statement that no entity had yet taken responsibility for the attacks, but that Washington would hold Tehran accountable should its proxies in Iraq be shown as responsible. We have made clear over the past 2 weeks, and again underscore that attacks against U.S. personnel and facilities will not be tolerated and will be responded to in a decisive manner, the statement says. Sunday's rocket attacks come days after the Trump administration ordered the withdrawal of all non-essential personnel from U.S. outposts in Baghdad, after U.S. intelligence had picked up communications related to the movement of rockets in Iraq by Iran-backed militias in the city. But British Major General Chris Gillibrand, the number 2 officer with the U.S.-led anti-ISIS coalition, told reporters at the Pentagon on Tuesday, just a few days ago, there had been no, quote-unquote, no increased threat from Tehran's proxies in Iraq or Syria. U.S. Central Command spokesman Captain Bill Urban pushed back hard on General Gillibrand's assessment, saying his assessment runs counter to the identified credible threats available to intelligence from the U.S. and its allies. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what this guy's problem is. I mean, they have intel coming in saying, hey, there's increased activity going on here. They're getting increased chatter. Obviously, hey, Effie, how you doing there, young lady? So they're getting increased chatter. They're picking up movement of rockets, and lo and behold, 5 days, 6 days after this idiot from Great Britain says, there's no increased threat. Well, I mean, I guess maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe that threat's always been there. Maybe there's just a lot of threats in Iraq, from the Iranians. And he says, well, now you can say, well, I said there wasn't any increase, but they've always had rockets. I don't know. What are you saying? Administration officials already ordered the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier strike group into the Persian Gulf earlier this month in response to reportedly imminent threats to U.S. Military personnel in the region by Iranian forces. So here we go. Look, the Iranians are getting squeezed by these sanctions. They're hurting really bad. A lot of countries actually joined us in this. This is actually pretty good. And what we did was we made deals with like the Saudis and UAE to make up the difference from with the like India and other countries were buying oil from Iran, and so we made deals with the Saudis and other countries, I think like the UAE, et cetera, to pick up the slack to sell them, sell India the oil at the same price the Iranians were selling it to them for, because I think initially we gave them like 6 months or a year, our allies to kind of get off Iranian oil and start buying from somebody else. And then I think it was a full 6 months had gone by, possibly a year, and we said, okay, that's it. If you do business with Iran, you're going to get sanctions on you as well. But I think the Saudis were already in place. I mean, look, the Saudis are going to be like, well, okay, we'll sell you the oil. I mean, look, India doesn't really care where they buy the oil from. I mean, as long as they have it, that's the most important thing. So it's not like, oh, gee, what are we going to do? All right, let's take a look here. The next story. Okay, sketchy Joe Biden. Sketchy Biden, Ukraine memo should be handled with care. So this is the Washington Times talking about the whole Biden incident with his son in the Ukraine, and they're saying it should be handled with care. I agree, but something just doesn't smell right on this deal. Biden was over there. He was bragging about the fact how he got the Ukrainians to stop an investigation into his son, and said that, oh, gee, I came over here. I'm in charge of providing you guys with aid, and if I don't hear some action, regarding the investigation, from this prosecutor into my son, I'm leaving with the aid. I'm not going to leave any aid behind, and that's it. And then he bragged about how the Ukrainians fired their prosecutor that same day. I'm not sure why you'd brag about that out loud, but like I said, I think he's suffering from the early onsets of dementia and Alzheimer's. So, maybe, 10 years ago he would have said, well, I'll never say that out loud. But, maybe the last couple of years he's like, oh, I can say whatever I want. That could be a possibility. All right. So again, this was the Washington Times. This was from a few days ago. Analysis and opinion. Earlier this week, a memo surfaced in Ukraine allegedly revealing how Vice President Joseph Biden accepted an unlawful benefit from his son's financial ties to local oil and gas producer Burisma. I am no fan of Mr. Biden, but the memo needs to be taken with a great big grain of salt. Ukraine is famously corrupt, and such explosive findings need to be met with the same thorough vetting that the so-called Black Ledger implicating former Trump campaign chief Paul Manafort should have received. The Kiev Post writes a memo allegedly leaked from the Prosecutor General's office of Ukraine shows that prosecutors are accusing Mr. Biden of receiving an unlawful benefit from former Ukrainian ecology minister Mykola Zazlovsky's Burisma Group, an oil and gas producer. The document, the paper reported, also accused Mr. Zalowski of offering Mr. Biden and former Secretary of State John Kerry a quote-unquote share of Burisma Group's profits for their help. There has been a lot of focus on Mr. Biden and his family's dealings with Ukraine's shady commercial sector. This is a commentary he's giving. I have my suspicions that whatever took place between Mr. Biden and his son Hunter, the Ukrainian prosecutor's office, and Burisma was not pretty and probably corrupt. However, this new memo coming out of nowhere right at this time strikes me as a bit too good to be true. Right. In other words, what this reporter saying is that he thinks there is something there. There's smoke there. Because, I mean, this whole thing, how Biden was there and his son Hunter was there and his prosecutor's office, and he got the prosecutor fired, the first one, and he bragged about it. And this guy, the prosecutor, this current prosecutor, with the Burisma company, how he has his own oil and gas company and how much money is being shoveled to his son. He goes, yeah, this doesn't smell good, doesn't smell right. But, we ought to take it with a little grain of salt when this memo just pops up out of nowhere. And this reporter goes on to write, I personally did some digging on the Manafort Black Ledger back in 2016. I had met with the head of the Ukrainian National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, Artem Sintek, prior to the Manafort incident. When I heard about the ledgers in a New York Times story, I called this office press representative the next morning. She told me at the time that what was published in the New York Times had not been provided by their organization in the Ukraine and was most likely taken off the internet. We later found out that the entire Manafort affair was set up by someone in Ukraine in order to help Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton defeat Mr. Trump in the 2016 election. Wow. Well, there's your Russian collusion, Ukrainian collusion with the Clinton campaign. I'm not vouching for Manafort's behavior at all, overall. I'm simply stating that that the Black Ledger was most likely fake evidence. Once Mr. Trump was elected, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko immediately got on a plane and flew to D.C. to meet with a new U.S. leader, obviously worded that America's support for Kiev would be in doubt due to Ukraine's meddling in the U.S. electoral process on behalf of Mrs. Clinton. Yeah, I mean, they were actually doing the real meddling, and it was with the Clintons, and the Clintons were accepting their help and probably asking for their help, promising them all kinds of wonderful things if they helped her win. And so, but anyway, so this president immediately got on the plane after Trump got elected. It was like, hey, I just want to let you know that whole Clinton thing, you guys still going to help us. Well, it turns out Trump has, in fact, helped him out quite a bit. President Obama only sent them, like, food aid and medical and humanitarian aid, whereas Trump actually has sent them, anti-tank weapons, anti-air weapons. We actually have Air Force planes doing joint maneuvers with the Ukrainian Air Force over Ukraine. So U.S. planes armed are flying over Ukraine right now. I remember President Obama was in office when, of course, President Putin reclaimed the Crimea from Ukraine, and he's been sitting there ever since. And but Trump got in office and pretty much told Putin, that's it. Okay, we're not going to go back in and get the land back from you. We're not going to start a land war in the Crimea. I mean, charge of the Light Brigade and all. I think that's where that took place. We're not going to do a land war in the Crimea to kick you out of there, but that's where it stops. You're not getting further. See, Putin knew he could get away with that with Obama, because Obama wasn't going to do anything, But Trump has made it very clear to Mr. Putin, who's supposed to be, his buddy, that no, you're not going any further. And the anti-tank, anti-air weapons he sent, as well as U.S. planes flying over Ukraine proper, that's a big message for President Putin, the guy that he supposedly conspired with. Yeah, so he's the reason why Putin isn't sitting in Kiev. President Obama, if Hillary Clinton had become president, I guarantee the Russians would be in Kiev right now. Anyway, evidence tends to appear in Ukraine to appear in Ukraine when it is needed. The country is famous for its dueling oligarchs and political factions, which use the media in order to go after their adversaries. Sounds like the United States, actually. The Biden memo may be just more of the same. I'm not saying that Mr. Biden's like Rachel Maddow with the Trump tax returns. I'm not saying that Mr. Biden did not use his influence to get a Ukrainian prosecutor fired. Well, yeah, he bragged about it in order to take the investigatory pressure off of his son, meddling in investigation, obstructing justice. I think Mr. Biden did do that. This reporter from the Times seems pretty sober, saying, yeah, which is why the concept of Russian collusion with Putin is not is ridiculous on the surface. I know, it's totally ridiculous. I mean, Trump sent troops to Syria. Actually, our troops killed about 200 Russian quote-unquote mercenaries. I mean, these are Russian troops. They're dressed up as mercenaries, but they're Russian frontline troops that were sent to Syria, and our guys actually waxed about 200 of them on Trump's orders. They know this, just big, fat, hairy liars. Yeah, and here's Biden actually, obstructing justice in the Ukraine, telling the Ukrainians not at the point of a gun, but saying, we're not going to give you any humanitarian aid, food, medicine, food for children, and medicine and stuff for children, unless you get rid of this prosecutor. If you don't get rid of this prosecutor, I'm taking all this stuff back with me. You're not getting shit. And, of course, Ukrainians caved. They needed this stuff. They needed the food. They needed the medicine, for the children. And Biden didn't care about them. He only cared about his own kid. And sure enough, before he got on that plane, Biden says, before I get on this plane, I want something done. And he says, I'm leaving I'm leaving in 4 hours. And before he got on that plane, within that 4 hours, that prosecutor who was investigating his son and that company his son Hunter was involved in was fired. And then he got on the plane, and sure enough, the Ukrainians got the food and medicine for the kids. So I mean, just so the idea that they're all projecting this on Trump is laughable at best. It's really sad at worst. And the idea that the Ukrainians admit that, yeah, we were kind of putting our finger on the scale, our thumb on the scale for Hillary Clinton, and we were leaking out stuff about Paul Manafort because that was supposed to hurt your campaign, and we wanted her to win because she promised all kinds of goodies to us if she won. And this guy, and again, the president had to fly to D.C. Right after Trump was elected to say, oh, hey, sorry, you're still going to help us, right? And again, Trump has. Okay, the simple fact is that Mr. Biden and the issue of his alleged corrupt dealings in the Ukraine need to be aired in a fair hearing respecting due process. But I don't know if there's the writing on it or something by the way that the Trump campaign and the Trump administration never received. I don't know who wrote. I mean, I'm not sure who typed this up, but yeah, a couple of typos in here. So he's saying they need due process, something the Trump campaign never got. Rudy Giuliani, Mr. Trump's legal advisor, is right. Mr. Biden will never become president of the United States without the Burisma issue being clarified. Well, look for Kamala Harris to jump on this one. Perhaps this is a chance for our law enforcement agencies to rebuild their reputations and do a real investigation, one that can show the American people they have ended their partisan ways. There's a wise saying that revenge is a dish best served cold. Trump supporters should remember that and handle the Biden affair the right way. I agree. I totally agree with that. We don't need to jump the gun and look like a bunch of idiots. I mean, it sounds like this guy got his. I mean, he admitted he was bragging. He was in front of some. I saw where he was talking to some group. I don't know what it was, some foreign policy group or something. He was bragging how he got them to fire the prosecutor that was investigating his son and the company his son was involved with in the Ukraine. So it wasn't like, I mean, he admitted his son was involved in a company in Ukraine, admitted his son was on the board of directors, meaning he did nothing, and admitted his son was getting paid, and he admitted that the prosecutor in the Ukraine was investigating his son, and he admitted that he got the Ukrainian president to fire that prosecutor that was investigating his son in kind of extortion in exchange for him turning over the aid that he was supposed to be giving. President Obama sent him over there to give the aid up, to say, hey, here's the aid. He didn't send him over there to extort, preferential treatment for his son and get a prosecutor fired. I'm sure that wasn't. I don't know. My guess is Obama didn't say, "Hey, go over there and take care of that thing for your son." President Obama didn't give a shit about Joe Biden or his son. Biden just took that on his own. Which might be one of many reasons why President Obama is not endorsing Joe Biden. It's like, oh no, I don't want this scandal coming out because everybody will blame me. They'll say I was in on it. They say I told you to go over there and do it. And and then of course, if you're going to do something nasty or dirty or illegal, I guarantee you Joe Biden's not the guy you do it with. Okay, because the biggest problem in the conspiracy is keeping it a secret. Well, I mean, the last guy you tell any secret to is Joe Biden. I mean, he can't help it, and then of course he has to brag and tell everybody what a great guy he is, and he isn't. So I mean, if Obama had some kind of shady deal going on, the last person he would tell would be Joe Biden. Hey, yeah, go over there and talk to these Ukrainians, and you know, and get a few bucks for us too. And then here's Biden bragging about it, 2 years later, at some type of forum. He was just bragging about the fact that he got them to fire a prosecutor. Yeah, real good. All right, so let's see here. Take a look at some immigration issues tonight. And we were covering this last week, is when the news broke that I think they should tempt Harris to take him down. That would be a delicious bowl of vishish. I can't pronounce that. Vichy Suisse. Bishoy. I don't know. But anyway, I know what you mean. But I don't think we have to tempt Harris to do anything. I mean, look, this woman is not again. I said it the other night. This woman is not running for vice president. Okay, look at it like this. Okay, Biden's one of those old guys like H.W. Bush. He's one of those guys just hang on forever. He'll live forever. So she probably knows that about him. So this guy's going to live forever. He's not going to die in office and I become president. So that means, theoretically, you'd have to wait till 2028. Well, Kamala Harris ain't waiting around until 2028 to become president or to run for president in 2028. This is her time now. She wants to do it now. So, like I was saying last night, I'm kind of curious on how she's going to take him down. I'm kind of, she's flexing a little bit of muscle with this 1994 crime bill. But this story, I don't think the story on the Ukraine thing is going to go away anytime soon. And you can talk about, how we have to get corruption out of the election process and, all that other good stuff. And I mean, I'm sorry, like I said, Harris is kind of taking care of her rearview mirror. She took care of Buttigieg. She took care of O'Rourke. They're pretty much non-starters at this point. Cold potato soup. All right, thanks. They're kind of non-starters at this point. So she's taking care of those two. So she got to get rid of the guy in front of her, because she's never going to go up in the polls as long as Biden's over 30%. And again, she can't stay at 5 or 6 or 7, and he's at 35, percent. So she's going to start taking him down. But she's got some time. I think we got some debates coming up, and town hall meetings and stuff. The first big debates in Florida, CNN was talking about covering, is going to be in June down in Miami. Two debates. Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine about those debates today, and it looked like the Democrats are setting the bar really low for who can get on the debate stage. Like you only have to have 1% in the polls. Like 3 polls have to show you a 1%. It's like, oh, geez. They're going to have like 25 people up there. I mean, it was bad enough when we had 17. But, I mean, we made a mistake. I think we set ours like 2.3% or something like that. But, they really just need to set it like at 4%. If you don't have 4%, I'm sorry. If you don't have 4% by the first big debates in June, then you shouldn't be on that stage. All it's going to do is distract. And then they're going to do it in 2 different nights. So they're not going to have an upper tier and a lower tier, it sounds like. We have all the top tier numbers on one night and the lower tier on the second night, because when the Republicans did that, nobody watched the second night. And those guys on the second night felt kind of left out, which they should. So they're going to kind of split up the people on the top. So you'd have, like, say, Harrison, Sanders on one night with all the other losers. And then you'd have, like, Biden and Warren the other night. They'll probably make it a male, female kind of thing. They can't just make 2 men on one night, 2 women on the next. And no, they can't do that. So they'll probably split it up, something like that. So your top 4 people be 2 on one night, 2 on the other night. But that's not, I don't think that's good for the electorate. I mean, the electorate wants to see these people going at it. They want to see the differences. They want to see, okay, what's the difference from you to this person? And be able to respond in real time to questions so they can make a good, educated, informed choice. But you've got 2 of them over there on one night and 2 over there on the other night, and the other idiots who have no reason being there on the stage, they're the ones they're talking to. Well, who cares what they have to say? I mean, who cares what Eric Swalwell has to say? Who really cares what Buttigieg has to say, or Beto O'Rourke? Who cares? People, they're not going to be anywhere near the finish line when this thing is all said and done. A lot of these people are going to probably drop out after Iowa. They might hang on Iowa, New Hampshire, and Jeb Bush hung on through South Carolina, but that's only because he had the money to do it. A lot of people aren't going to have any money. A lot of this money is going to Biden, the people I just mentioned. A lot of this money is going to Biden and Harris and Sanders. So, it's not going to be a lot of money for them to, run big campaign staffs and stuff. So, but anyway, they're doing 1%, 2 different nights, So you don't get to see the big superstars all together at the same time. But I think if they just made it like 4% or 3.5, I don't know, just something high enough where you just get the losers out of the way. So you don't have to have them all on stage and distract from who's actually got a shot to actually win the nomination. Because if you're not at 4%, you don't have any shot to win the nomination. It's not going to happen. I mean, look back in the history of the primaries, either Republican or Democrat. I mean, who came from behind from nowhere and suddenly did something? You probably have to go back to '76 with Jimmy Carter. But that was kind of a very unique thing. We just came out of Vietnam, just came out of Watergate. They wanted a non-Washington insider. So all the typical Washington insiders of the Democratic Party. No, people rejected Humphrey and all those guys. So, and he was governor of Georgia. He was totally clean. He hadn't been to D.C. He hadn't been anything. He was a military veteran. He had served on nuclear attack submarines, I believe, or maybe nuclear missile submarines. I'm not sure. Gladiator fights. Oh, there you go. You want to get it somewhere, but yeah, I mean, you pretty much go back to that to find somebody who just came out of the blue. I mean, '80 was Bush and Reagan. Bush didn't come out of nowhere. I mean, '88, '92, Clinton didn't come out of anywhere. Reagan had mentioned Clinton a couple of times while he was president, talking about what he was doing in Arkansas on welfare reform and stuff. So and he was big in the Southern Democratic Leadership Committee, the SDLC. He was a big person in there. He might have even been leader of them. He was like the new Democrats, the new conservative Democrats, if you will, or moderate Democrats, getting away from the liberal Democrats. So I mean, none of these people in the last 40 years have ever just come out of the blue. Like none of these guys down at the bottom level right now are going to be suddenly going to make strides and head near the top. Nobody's going to push Harris, Warren, Biden, or Sanders out of the way. It just isn't going to happen. But okay, let's get to this story. Border Patrol flies hundreds of migrants to California. And again, we were covering this last week when they started doing this, when they started talking about doing it, how much it was going to cost and everything. So, all right. So, San Diego, this again by the Washington Times. The U.S. Border Patrol said Friday that it would fly hundreds of migrant families from South Texas to San Diego for processing, and that it was considering flights to Detroit, Miami, and Buffalo, New York. The flights are the latest sign of how the Border Patrol is struggling to keep up with the large numbers of Central American families that are reaching the U.S. border with Mexico, especially in Texas. Moving migrants to less crowded places is expected to distribute the workload more evenly. Flights from Texas' Rio Grande Valley to San Diego were to begin Friday and continue indefinitely 3 times a week, with each flight carrying between 120 and 135 people, said Douglas Harrison, Border Patrol's interim San Diego sector chief. We don't have an end date. No shit. Harrison told reporters, this is a contingency operation. We've got to give the people in the Rio Grande Valley some relief. Right, because a lot of these people when they get released, it's a hammer that fixes a lot of nails. Not my fault. It's a hammer that fixes a lot of nails. Not your fault. I got it. Okay. But no, I mean, again, when they release these migrants, there are some relief agencies in the area where they generally try to release them to the relief agencies that have shelters and stuff, but they're getting overwhelmed. And so sometimes these people just get released into the streets, and they have to. And there are a lot of Spanish-speaking neighborhoods, obviously, in the Rio Grande Valley, where they can go and say, "Hey, I'll sleep on the floor, I'll sleep on a couch. You got some room for us." And there's probably people empathetic to their plight, but still, that's a lot of wear and tear on the people of those cities. And so they're saying, "Hey, look, we got to spread this out. So if we do get to San Diego." And maybe there aren't shelters there. At least, the city can then try to, handle some of the pain, kind of spreading the pain like I talked about the other night. So hopefully, it's a good idea. I mean, I'm sure people, and then they also go on to say here, plans to fly, hold on, let me pull this up. Plans to fly from Rio Grande Valley to Detroit, Miami, and Buffalo were preliminary, Harrison said. Authorities were researching available airports and the ability for nonprofit groups to provide temporary assistance. Already, U.S. authorities are moving 4 buses a day from the Rio Grande Valley to Laredo, Texas, about 100 miles away. There is also a daily flight contracted through U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to Del Rio, Texas, about 275 miles away. Agents in the Rio Grande Valley will collect biographical information and do a medical screening before sending migrants to San Diego on flights contracted by ICE. Migrants will go from San Diego International Airport to a Border Patrol station, where they will be fingerprinted, interviewed, and screened again for medical problems. Processing at the station typically takes hours. ICE will decide whether to release or detain the families in San Diego. Its practice since October has been to quickly release families in the U.S. with notices to appear in immigration court. The flights could further strain the San Diego Rapid Response Network, a coalition of religious and civic groups that has provided temporary shelter to asylum-seeking families since large-scale releases began in October. San Diego County has sued the Trump administration to recover costs. The San Diego Rapid Response Network said it would shelter migrants who are flown from Texas, just as the organization has done for thousands of migrants released in California. It said the potential influx underscores the urgent need for a permanent long-term migrant shelter in San Diego. Now, this is what it also underscores. Hey, Black and Irish, how you doing there, young lady? Good seeing you. What it also underscores is something else. Now, check this out. Okay, San Diego has these Border Patrol agents who are sitting around twiddling their thumbs in these offices, these ICE agents. Why? Well, because they finished most of the wall in the San Diego area. You know, down there by National City and Chula Vista, where it borders, the country of Mexico. So, in other words, there's not as many people coming across that border now at the San Diego area. So, I mean, if you would have said 5 years ago, we're going to fly people who are crossing from Texas into California, everybody would have said, well, that's stupid, because there's tons of people crossing from Mexico into California. But that wall's done there. So they're not crossing there. So they're making an end run. They're going over to Texas, where you've seen on the news on many different shows and YouTube channels, where the wall is blank. Like they'll have a wall go for a mile or two, and then all of a sudden it stops, and then it gets picked up like say 5-6 miles later. You got this big gap, the big open area. So you don't have that in San Diego though. That one area where they were crossing, the famous rush they were making, there in Tijuana. They showed some of the fence where the old fence was meeting the new fence, but pretty much it's done in the San Diego area. So they're not crossing there. So the idea, again, 5 years ago, you said, well, you told the San Diego Border Patrol ICE station in San Diego, hey, we're going to shoot some guys over for you to process. We said, well, get the hell out of here. We got enough people here crossing by ourselves. Well, they're not crossing there anymore because the wall is done. See? Walls work. There you go. Now just imagine we had the wall going all the way across. Then we wouldn't be having these problems. I mean, it doesn't end everything, okay? If you want to get somewhere, you will. But it sure deters a lot of people and sure is shit going to slow it down. Obviously, as it's done in San Diego, so much so that the San Diego office is able to have staff who are available to take in processing migrants from, 1,000 miles away, which tells you something right there. Short flights cost the federal government about $6,000 each per flight, not per person, per flight. Officials said it wasn't immediately clear how much the longer flights cost. Border Patrol agents do some processing remotely by video conferencing, but Harrison said stations in the Rio Grande Valley had run out of room even to do that. They couldn't even do the video conferencing. They ran out of room for the video conferencing. San Diego, he said, had room to hold migrants for up to 72 hours and staff to process them. Which stations on the northern border lack? See, that's what I'm saying. These people are sitting around. The staff that are working in the San Diego field offices, they have time to be able to process these people because they're not coming across the border there because the wall's up. Border arrests have surged since the summer to 98,977 in April, nearly 3 times what they were a year earlier. Nearly 7 out of every 10 came as families or were children traveling alone. The Rio Grande Valley was by far the busiest corridor, followed by El Paso, Texas. The Border Patrol said it is detaining about 8,000 people at a time in the Rio Grande Valley, double its maximum capacity even with a 500-person tent it opened earlier this month. The agency said Friday it would open 4 new temporary structures in the Rio Grande Valley that will have generators, lighting, and AC. It released photos showing people lying on grass or pavement outside 2 of its stations with mylar sheets for blankets. Well, hopefully nobody cries about that. I mean, you're telling them to come over here en masse, and you don't provide anybody the ability to house these people. And then kind of going along with that, we have here's this Kirsten Gillibrand, who, if you notice, I didn't mention as far as the top 4-tier candidates, because she isn't. Hold on, let me grab another cigarette. All right, 2020 Democrat Kirsten Gillibrand says she won't detain migrants. They can go into the community. Oh, yeah. I mean, you can almost see her saying it with that dumb look on her face, just like right there at that mic. which looks like actually a Sennheiser microphone. I know that because I'm speaking to you through a Sennheiser microphone, and that looks like what it says on the side. Albeit that looks like a pretty cheap Sennheiser microphone. Yeah, but anyway. So she goes, oh, they can just go into the community. Well, okay, let's take a look at that. Again, this is from the Washington Times. Again, it's written today, May 19th, by Alex Sawyer. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand said Sunday she will not have asylum seekers and those seeking refuge in the United States held in detention facilities if she is elected president. Huh. The 2020 Democratic presidential candidate rejected the push by some GOP lawmakers to pass legislation to allow the Trump administration to hold families for a longer period of time to help combat the increasing flow of migrants across the southern border. Under current policy, children can only be held in detention for 20 days. And this is Gillibrand, of course. As President of the United States, I wouldn't use the detention system at all, the New York Democrat told CBS's Face the Nation. She only supports funding border security measures that focus on combating human and drug trafficking, as well as anti-terrorism efforts. Ms. Gillibrand said those seeking Ms. Gillibrand said those seeking refuge in the United States should be given a lawyer in a process to seek asylum. Well, how does she know they even want asylum? Or they qualify for it? They will follow it, she said. Really? Why? They haven't. These people, they take off. Very few people come back for their asylum hearings because they know they're going to lose because most of them are phony. So when they get in front of a judge, it's like when they have to rubber meets the road kind of thing, they lose. So they just don't come back. They say, well, come find us. Well, they know we don't have the men material to go find anybody because they're all down at the border processing their friends as they come across with their phony kids, as we covered last night. They will follow it, she said. They can go into the community. Well, what community is that? Like her community? Like her neighborhood? What are they going to do when they get to that community? She makes it sound like there's like this community waiting for them to help them out and give them housing and food and blankets and clothing and schooling and medical care. What community is she talking about? I bet it's not her community. I bet it's not where she lives. Is she going to open the gates on her gated community? Because she lives in a gated community. And she's going to say, okay, let them on in here. They can come right in here. Really? Yeah, let's do that. That ain't going to happen. The New York lawmaker said President Trump's immigration policy has been divisive and harmful. Yes, it should be dividing us between U.S. citizens and people who are here illegally. But the Democrats want to divide the rest of us as well. Crazy. All right, let's see here. So let's cover this story here. This is another promise kept. Trump's toughness on China gives Potomac elites the vapors. Yeah, no kidding. This was from a few days ago. This analysis and opinion by Charles Hurt in the Washington Times. He appears, you see him on Gutfield's show and on Tucker's show every once in a while. Okay, Seoul. It is always funny what passes as principled purity in Washington. President Trump wakens the American giant to the trade war China has been waging against us for decades. And all the principled purists along the Potomac begin bleeding out and spurtering about free trade and protectionism. Because, yeah, the American economy is about to go dark and we are going to return to the Stone Age. We can't even build a freaking wall without the entire political system on both sides of the aisle throwing a hissy fit. Free trade. Who are these people kidding? This is an opinion piece, obviously. To whom do they think they are still lying? They haven't been giving us free trade all these years. They've just been the people in charge of the so-called quote-unquote free trade agreements, hammered out by governments, of course, and so they like things just fine. Of course they do. They're the ones who have been deciding all this time who wins and who loses, whose cow is sacred and who gets gored. True free trade would be the wonderful wild, wild west. Open the borders to trade and let the market sort it out. But this ain't free trade, and it never has been. President Trump is the only person who has called these people on their lies, and he has repeatedly called everybody's bluff by saying he would happily drop all tariffs with all countries. Basically, that's what he's saying. He's called them out on their bullshit by saying, I tell you what, let's get rid of all tariffs. No, China has no tariffs against us. We have no tariffs against China. European countries have no tariffs against us. We have no tariffs against European countries. Canada, Mexico, Southeast Asia, everybody. Tariff-free zone. Nobody has a tariff on anybody else anywhere. Well, of course, everybody balked because people like putting tariffs on our stuff. The Europeans have a 5-to-1 tariff ratio on us. We sell a car there. I think we pay a 10% tariff for any cars we sell to them, and when they sell a car to us from Europe, it's only a 2.5% tariff or 2% tariff. So it's like 5 times higher for tariffs, coming back. So of course nobody wants that. They just want tariffs on us, and we don't get to have tariffs on them, and that's free trade. Well, that's not free trade. Okay, it's free to them. Well, they actually get paid. So it's really free. Let's see. And see, now that would be free trade, but the budget in Washington could not get fed that way, so they would never agree to such a reckless plan. Meanwhile, these people keep on defending the status quo. We're trying to wreck our patents, steals our intellectual property, and subsidizes Chinese industry with a keen eye toward destroying American industry. Basically, China's like a vertical monopoly. They control all the means of everything from start, from the bottom up, and they subsidize all these industries. Like you saw when they're doing a stimulus now because of these tariffs. So basically, what they're doing is they're just putting money into banks to say loan money, and they're also buying up stocks and stuff as well at the same time. So when when the stock market goes down, they're just buying up the stocks and to keep the stock prices artificially high. So the companies look like their balance sheets look like they still have a lot of money, and so they can still attract foreign investors not to sell off the stocks and run for the hills. Let's see. Indeed, over the past few decades that America has been unbolting and shipping her factories overseas to China and elsewhere, industry has actually become a dirty word in America. Literally, a dirty word. The country that invented the assembly line, opened the West with the steam engine, locomotive, and built the world's first skyscrapers has become a country run by silk stockings who don't even dirty their dainty little hands with paper greenbacks anymore. It's all digital. These people still cannot grasp Mr. Trump's shocking election 2.5 years ago. If that election was about any one thing, it was about work. Mr. Trump's entire campaign was a master class in reaching American workers and offering them a vision of a country that would let them work again. Whether it was bringing back steel and coal jobs, cutting ridiculous federal regulations, standing to China, or stopping the flow of illegal immigration across the southern border, his entire campaign message was tailored to workers and people who want to see America get back to work again. Like the steel truss bridge over the Delaware River reads, Trenton makes, the world takes. All this is why Mr. Trump's escalating tariff war with China is so perfectly in keeping with his 2016 campaign. And Mr. Trump is laughing all the way to the Treasury, counting all the money coming in through his new tariffs. Yeah, there's money coming in the bank from the Chinese. When those ships land on those ports, so they got to write a check, okay, made payable to the Department of Treasury. Period. And that's how it works. You can't until that check's written, nobody's unloading shit. And then the check's written, and then they unload it. All the free trade purists in Washington scoff that this is no way to fund a country. But before the imposition of the federal income tax in 1913, trade tariffs was a primary source of income for the federal government. Sure, the federal government was smaller back then, but isn't that the point? Right. In other words, before you had the federal income tax in 1913, import duties were the primary source of revenue for the feds. And they say, well, yeah, but the government was smaller back then. It's like, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing that the government was smaller. Anyway, is there anything more insidious and destructive to a free, self-governed society than discouraging work? Well, that is exactly what an income tax does. It punishes people for working. A consumption tax, now I don't know why he's getting to this, but okay. It's a whole other topic. A consumption tax would be far fairer. Instead of punishing work, it would celebrate work. Workers, once again, could take home their entire paycheck. The only problem with the consumption tax is that it is so hard for the federal government to administer. Yes, unless, of course, you collected it at the border when tariffs goods arrived. Yeah, I don't know why I ended up with that one. All right. Let's see. All right. Perfect test case. Trump in Pennsylvania. So, live call-in show, 775-273-8970. Perfect test case. Trump in Pennsylvania. Here we go. Take a look at this story. Again, by the Washington Times. Let's see. Let me cut down on these stories real quick here. Boom. All right. So let's see what this says. This is from today from Jennifer Harper, the Washington Times. President Trump will journey to Motorsville, Pennsylvania on Monday evening for a jumbo campaign-style rally. Make sure we all watch it, okay? Cough, bullshit, cough. Yeah, cough, cough, cough. There you go. President Trump will journey to Motorsville, Pennsylvania on Monday evening for a jumbo campaign-style rally in an aviation hangar at a regional airport. The town is located about 100 miles west of Scranton, has a population of 4,777. There is festival-style excitement in the air. Over 10,000 people are expected to attend the event, according to local officials. Local schools will be closed for the day, while restaurants are poised for some big business. Yeah. Shuttle buses are ready to run nonstop to ferry the faithful to the event, which will be covered by C-SPAN at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's 4 o'clock my time. Okay. Well, it's going to be covered at 7. He's not going to start at 7 Eastern Time. Usually he starts his rallies like at 8 or 9 Eastern Time. Make sure so people get home from work and watch it. It's the whole point. But this is pretty cool. So, it only has a population of 4,777. As much of excitement in the air, 10,000 people expected to attend. I mean, if you're a restaurant or bar or whatever, you're going to be stocking up, and wanting to be open late because you're going to make a lot of money. There'll be a whole bunch of Republicans there. So anyway, this is pretty cool. He's going to this small town in Pennsylvania Monday night. That's kind of cool. It's going to be an aviation hangar. So that's and he did that in one other town because I remember that day he did those events in 2018. He did, I want to say 2 in Georgia and then 1 in Tennessee. And he did 1 in Georgia and 2 in Tennessee. And one of the ones he did, I think, in Georgia, outside Atlanta, was because Uber guy was out there covering it. The one he covered in Georgia was at an aviation hangar also. I think it was outside of Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so local schools are closed. This is like a big deal. This is going to be really cool. It's probably a good idea to close the schools because, the roads are going to be crowded and stuff. You don't want the school bus on the roads, these kids and stuff. So that's probably a good idea. There's a lot of excitement, reports WNEP, the local ABC News affiliate. Question: why doesn't President Trump wear glasses? Answer: because he already has 20/20. One listener quipped in a message to the station. There we go. Well, we ain't got nothing yet. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. There you go. Mr. Trump, however, never forgets the local dynamic. This marks his 48th rally in Pennsylvania, his 7th in the northeastern part of the state. Well, that's interesting. The president is also there to support congressional candidate Fred Keller, a GOP state representative. Mr. Trump has endorsed and praised as strong on crime, Second Amendment rights, health care, and issues of concern to active duty military and veterans. Mr. Keller faces Democratic challenger Mark Friedenberg in a special election on Tuesday, which will decide on a replacement of Republican Tom Marino, who resigned from office in January to take work in the private sector. If he's elected, Mr. Keller will be one of just 2 House members who did not attend college. Well, there you go. This is a heavy manufacturing, heavy agricultural district, and Fred's story really fits in with what a lot of families experience here, Keller campaign manager John Anzura told Roll Call. The election could prove a perfect test case as 2020 looms. Keller's campaign has also echoed GOP messaging in other races, warning of socialism and the high cost of liberal proposals like the Green New Deal and Medicare for All. Well, the Green New Deal, let's be honest, Pennsylvania, Ohio, coal-producing states, steel, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's not going to be going over big over there. So this is a good test case. Like the Green New Deal and Medicare for All, the news organization said. Okay, Trump can beat any of them. Okay, again, people, let's stay vigilant. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. One analyst predicts that Joe Biden's red-hot campaign for president will cool and quickly. Sanders is still the candidate to beat in the Democratic primary. He more closely aligns with what the passion is among Democratic voters, far to the left. Sanders is the purity candidate, whereas Biden's the relic who's opposing the energy of the Democratic Party. John Thomas, a California-based Republican pollster and strategist, told Fox News. Biden's support is way overestimated for 2 reasons. First, it is a function of... Oh, actually, I saw this interview. Biden's support is way overestimated for 2 reasons. First, it is a function of name ID. Biden is one of the most well-known politicians in the world. Second is a promise that Biden can beat President Trump. But the moment that promise starts to look shaky for any number of reasons, he has a poor fundraising quarter or his approvals dip, Trump will overtake Biden, branding him as corrupt as Hillary Clinton and the rest of the Democratic establishment, said Thomas. I think Trump honestly could beat any of the. I don't want to read this, please. Okay, a brief assortment of headlines from the last 24 hours after Representative Justin Amash, a Michigan Republican, announced support for impeachment proceedings against President Trump. Republican Party turns on Justin Amash after Congressman calls for Trump impeachment. Why Justin Amash stands alone. Rashida Tlaib is recruiting Justin Amash to co-sponsor bipartisan impeachment resolution. Yeah, it'll be bipartisan. One Republican and like 120 Democrats. Let's see. Well, okay, let's get into the story here. All right, let me jump over here. And I got some other stories I wanted to cover. Got them all bookmarked here, so let's take a look. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Every good one. Come on, you know they're willing to sacrifice their industry for the global. Yeah, okay. He's a he's a nutter. He's nuttier than he's a nutter that Amish. No, he's some. Well, he's looking to run for president. He's looking to get famous, and he knows he knows one. He knows he's going to get press because he's the only Republican, and then two, he knows Trump is going to tweet something about him, and he'll get more attention. And of course, Trump did. You know. Let's see here. Let me take a look at these. What stories I got here I want to cover. We'll cover this story here. Let me jump over to it. All right. California Supreme Court resumes case. Excuse me. California Supreme Court resumes case against undercover pro-life duo. All right. Let's take a look here. This is the Washington Times from today. California's highest court has allowed the prosecution of two undercover pro-life activists to resume, lifting its stay on the proceedings. The California Supreme Court on Thursday rejected a petition to halt legal action against anti-abortion activists David Daleiden and Sandra Susan Merritt, according to an official of the Thomas More Society, a conservative pro-life law firm representing the defendants. State Supreme Court Justice Tani Gore Cantil Sakui, is that her whole name? Last month issued a stay on prosecuting Mr. Daleiden and Ms. Merritt, who face fraud charges brought by Attorney General Xavier Becerra for their undercover video recordings of Planned Parenthood workers and officials. The decision to deny David Daleiden's petition review means that Xavier Becerra, as Planned Parenthood's prosecutor-in-chief, will be able to continue his unconstitutional harassment of David, bringing charges against him that don't pass the red face test. Peter Green, vice president of the Thomas More Society, told the Washington Times. Mr. Daleiden, founder of the pro-life advocacy group Center for Medical Progress, and Ms. Merritt have been charged with illegally recording 14 persons at a 2014 National Abortion Federation meeting in San Francisco and restaurants. The video purports to show these individuals discussing the sale of fetal tissue. True. I saw that video, actually. Yeah, I think we all have. The California Attorney General's office did not respond to a request for comment. Attorneys for Ms. Daleiden and Ms. Merritt argued against the inclusion of Planned Parenthood, the National Abortion Federation, and unnamed victims into the case, calling their intervention unprecedented and saying it would compromise the integrity and impartiality of the prosecution. San Francisco Superior Court Judge Christopher Hite had ruled in February that the outside pro-choice groups could participate in a preliminary hearing to show the harm Ms. Daleiden and Ms. Merritt are alleged to have caused them, citing a 2008 state law on victims' rights. The Center for Medical Progress released in 2015 undercover videos that allegedly show Planned Parenthood employees discussing the sale of fetal tissue for profit. A charge the group denied. No, that's what they were discussing. I saw the video. We all saw it. I mean, they were talking about selling body parts. I mean, I don't know what they would say they were. What could they possibly say they were talking about? I mean, I heard the conversation. I saw them. They were like moving their hands. Their lips were moving. I heard audio. It's like they were discussing how much they could sell these parts for, and they were laughing about it, you know, and even making jokes about the fact they were selling different parts and stuff of a baby. I mean, that's what they were doing. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit recently upheld similar CMP videos of Planned Parenthood clinics in Texas as authentic enough to justify the Texas Department of Health kicking the women's health care giant off its Medicaid reimbursement rolls. Yeah, I mean, these are some really sick people. Unlike Texas, California requires that all parties must provide consent to be recorded or videotaped. So that's what they're going to go. The Attorney General's office is going to go after them for that. Ms. Dalladan and Ms. Merritt face more than a dozen counts of privacy invasion in California. They argue their work is protected as journalists. Well, yeah. So in other words, a journalist can't record somebody unless they say, "Oh, I'm recording you." I don't know about that. Let's see. Trying to take McCain's place as the biggest rhino. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's get to the next story here. What I'll do, I'll line up a few here. Let me just take these off. Give me a second. Reading this one right now. All right, let's get to the Mike Pence story. All right, here we go. Commencement speaker Mike Pence gets standing ovation after student walkout. He's at Christian college and some students walked out. I'm like, did you know what college you were going to? Didn't make any sense. All right, let's take a look at this. All right, see here. Upland, Indiana. Dozens of graduates and faculty have protested the selection of Vice President Mike Pence as the commencement speaker at Taylor University in Indiana by walking out moments before his introduction. The Indianapolis Star reports the protesters in caps and gowns rose and quietly walked down the aisle and out of the auditorium in the Kessler Student Activity Center at the University of Upland, Indiana. The protest was planned and discussed prior to Saturday's ceremony. Some faculty and students at the non-denominational Christian Liberal Arts School debated the appropriateness of the former Indiana governor at the commencement ceremony. Most of Taylor's graduating class did not leave. Pence actually received a standing ovation. Graduate Laura Rathborn said Pence's president makes it difficult for everyone at Taylor to feel welcomed. Why? God. All right, well. I thought I was going to tell more about that story. Oh, well. Another one of those like stories that ends real quick. All right, let's see. Amy Klobuchar. Let's see what she has to say. Amy Klobuchar dismissed William Barr's investigation of the investigators. This really bothers me. Oh, well, I guess we should just stop. Call Barr. Tell him to get that guy up in Connecticut. Tell him to stop doing what he's doing because Klobuchar is bothered. Yeah, I mean, look at that face. I mean, she looks bothered. I mean, that's terrible. All right. Again, this is from today. Alex Sawyer, Washington Times. 2020 presidential candidate Senator Amy Klobuchar said Sunday she objects to Attorney General William Barr investigating the investigators and attempting to uncover whether the probe in Donald Trump's campaign was legitimate. During an interview earlier this week, Mr. Barr said he understood why President Trump called special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation a witch hunt and said he intends to uncover how the intelligence agencies handled the probe. Yeah, I mean, it's. Again, if this was a Republican administration investigating, this okay. You don't have to even go that far to figure this, to make an analogy. Okay, President Obama is running for president in 2008. Okay, and John McCain is running against him. He has a Republican nomination. And George Bush's administration, FBI, Department of Justice, CIA, NSA, all start investigating, President Obama's campaign. Can you imagine the scandal? First of all, this is a scandal. It'd be the same scandal. It's just that the coverage. Can you imagine the coverage, I should say? It would be all over the place. Oh, my God. It would be like all the FBI agents, all the DOJ officials, everybody would be getting hauled to court. Okay, and the mainstream media were demanding, trials, grand jury investigations, people getting indicted, But here, there's like, well, it was just Trump, so, whatever. It's like, well, they must have had decent information. No, they had no information. They had nothing. And they all knew it was bogus information, and they all went after it anyway. So, okay. So, anyway, Ms. Klobuchar said she doesn't think there's any legitimate concerns that warrant Mr. Barr's review. How the hell could she say that? Doesn't make any sense. How could you not say that? First of all, it turned out there wasn't any conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russians. No collusion, also known as collusion, conspiracy collusion. So there was none. But still, this investigation snowballed into this huge FISA court warrant where they were spying on Page. And I wish somebody would please say this out loud. They were spying on Page, and everybody's Page was talking to, and everybody those people were talking to, and everybody those people were talking to, which includes the president of the United States at the time of candidate. Okay, but nobody wants to say that out loud. So right there you go. Klobuchar doesn't think. So, I mean, this is what's going on, and she doesn't think that there should be any. There are no legitimate concerns about how you. One, you have a Democrat in the White House. His administration is spying on the Republican nominee for president, and she didn't think there's anything to be worried about. And it turns out everything they were investigating turned out to be not true. Even the obstruction, that's all after the fact. You're talking that's like after the guy gets inaugurated. So the whole pretext for the investigation turns out to be nothing. It was all wrong. But yet these guys ran with it. So he don't think she thinks there's nothing to look at. She says, "This really bothers me," said during an appearance on Fox News Sunday. She said Congress should have Mueller come and answer questions about his final report and take a look at ways to protect the democracy from foreign influence. Well, first of all, again, you don't need to bring this guy up for a 448-page report. If it was 40 pages, okay, have him come fill the blanks in. But trust me, he filled all the blanks in. Again, I disagree with some of his conclusions, but again, the guy was thorough. I mean, if I was him, I would say what some judges say. Do you have anything else to add except what's not written down? It's like somebody asks him a question. I guarantee you, he should just have this whole thing memorized in his head. And when somebody asks him a question, well, what do you think about this? He says, can I please direct you to turn to page 425, line 14, paragraph 2. There's your answer. Anything else? Move on. That's what I would do. Because I guarantee you, there's not going to be a single question they ask him. They just want him on the TV, saying it out loud, because they want him speaking the report. Because it's not as sexy if Congressman just repeat it on a news station. Instead, he'll be there in a congressional hearing. You'll have the backdrop, the press, the people in the galley, the senators sitting up there, and the congressman sitting up there looking down on the witness. That whole charade. But I mean, I guarantee you, he's not going to add anything new that wasn't in that 448 pages. It's not going to happen. But they just want the backdrop. They just want, the coverage. That's all. So anyway, let's see what she says. Barr is off talking about whatever he wants to talk about politically, but what he should be doing is to protect the integrity of our elections and our democracy. Mr. Barr recently tapped U.S. Attorney John Durham. Yay. Again, I don't know this guy. I probably know he's a fraud, whatever, but at least he's got somebody looking at it. John Durham to review whether the surveillance of Trump's campaign associates was warranted or if intelligence officials engaged in misconduct during the Russian investigation. Yeah, it's a good idea. Totally good idea. So let's look at some more candidates on the Democratic side. All right. Democratic White House hopefuls tee off on Trump, White House for hostile rhetoric toward Iran. Oh, when was this written? Sunday. Well, they just launched a missile, stupid, so maybe it wasn't so hostile. Several Democratic presidential hopefuls took the Trump administration to task Sunday over its rhetoric against Iran, saying the White House is leading the U.S. toward another intractable conflict in the Middle East. Senator Bernie Sanders, a Vermont independent who also vied for the party's presidential nomination in 2016, drew direct parallels between the ongoing call to arms from the White House against Iran to the run-up in Washington to the 2003 Iraq War. Look, I was totally against the 2003 Iraq War. Anybody who knows anything about me knows I was totally against it, not just after the fact, before it started. So, yeah, I mean, okay, here's the thing with Iraq. This one didn't make any sense to me. So the whole idea was that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He was going to turn them over to Osama bin Laden to then, blow up a city of ours or commit some terrorist act, a dirty bomb, suitcase bomb, whatever bomb. Okay. And at the same time, everybody was saying what a megalomaniac Saddam Hussein was. It's all about him, his money, his power, the big hands going across the highway with the swords. Well, okay, I mean, he watches movies, okay? He saw that movie with Ben Affleck where Baltimore got blown up with Morgan Freeman, and the guy was able to pick up some residue and tell Ben Affleck exactly where the bomb was made, what year the bomb was made, where the material came from, and everything else. Okay, so obviously knew if he built a weapon of mass destruction and gave it to a guy whose only address was a cave, they would definitely come after him and blow him, his family, his wealth, his whole country to smithereens. He knew we would definitely do that. And the American people would be behind that. The first time he used a nuclear bomb since Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but he knew the American people would say, yeah, nuke that country. Okay, period. So he knew that. He knew if he gave a bomb to, that's what I'm saying. If he gave a bomb to Osama bin Laden and he used it on us, we trace it back to him, which we would. We'd blow him and his whole country to smithereens. So either one of two things. Either at the time Saddam Hussein is suicidal or he's a megalomaniac. You can't be both. Okay? That's why it never made any sense to me. He's not suicidal. Not to mention, Saddam Hussein at the time, he had Christian churches, Catholic churches, and even Jewish synagogues in his country. Okay? Osama bin Laden hated Saddam Hussein. Okay, women didn't have to wear burqas or whatever, or hijabs or anything. None of that. Okay, if Osama bin Laden had his way, Saddam Hussein and his kids would have been strung up by the nearest lamppost he could find with a rope. So there's no way he's going to hand this guy a bomb. For all he knew, he used against him. So that's why the whole thing didn't make sense back in '03 to me. It just didn't make any sense. But anyway, I digress. Anthony Bryan Logan. I digress. Anyway, if Trump wants to go to war in Iran, well, he knows that's not true. He knows Trump doesn't want to go to war with anybody. Okay, he even stuck his neck out and risked embarrassing himself to the whole world to try to make peace with North Korea. Okay, I mean, he's been wanting to pull people out of Afghanistan and Syria, and it's been the rhinos and the Democrats telling him he can't do it because Trump wants it, so now everybody has to be against it. So anyway, Sanders was on to say, if Trump wants to go to war in Iran, that will make the war in Iraq look like a cakewalk. Sanders said on NBC's Meet the Press, we've got to do everything we can to stop that. Tulsi Gabbard, who won her House seat, while also an officer with the Hawaii National Guard, echoed Sanders' comparison between Iraq and Iran. I don't care what she says. Let's see. Senator Sean Moulton, Massachusetts. Okay. All right. So we all know Iran war bad. Okay. No shit. Okay. We got these people tell us that. All right. Let's cover some. Let's see. Let's see. I think this is it. Okay. Yep. Let's cover some legal stuff. Hey, I'm a lawyer. Go figure. Hey, Forbidden. How you doing? How's it going there, young lady? All right. Kansas Supreme Court rules man accused in child rape must be freed. No. Let's find out why. I did not read the story yet, so let's find out why. Topeka, Kansas. A divided Kansas Supreme Court says a man accused of rape and aggravated sodomy against a 3-year-old relative cannot be tried a second time and must be released from prison. A Saline County judge declared a mistrial in March 2018 trial of Richter Bowman because the then 4-year-old girl wouldn't take the oath to be sworn as a witness. The judge ruled the state couldn't prove its case without the girl's testimony. The Kansas City Star reports that in a 4-3 split decision announced Friday, the Supreme Court ruled that the trial judge should not have declared a mistrial. The justice said putting Bowman on trial a second time would violate his constitutional rights against double jeopardy. Okay, so they're saying that instead of declaring a mistrial, okay, here we go. Okay, basically, when the court declares a mistrial, if it doesn't declare it to be an intentional mistrial, that means the state gets to refile and do it again. They get a do-over. Okay, somebody messed up. You did what's known as a motion to eliminate. You said, okay, you're not allowed to put this in front of the jury. And then some idiot witness, generally, this is on a negligent where it happens by accident, then some witness just says it out loud. Or you show the defendant in handcuffs. You're not supposed to. You show him coming out of the holding cell because he's supposed to look like he's not in custody. He's wearing a suit or a regular pair of clothes. So that's a mistrial. Say, okay, this jury's tainted. It's screwed. We got a mistrial. We'll do it again. So now, an intentional mistrial, that would be double jeopardy. And this is what intentional mistrial is. Okay, here's the scenario. The DA knows he's losing the case. A witness didn't show up. Okay, you can't get a hold of a witness. He knows he's going to lose. Or this jury, it's a non-hanging jury. You know, he helped pick the jury, but this jury is going to screw him over. He thinks, oh, I'm going to get screwed. So now, same situation. There's a motion to eliminate which says, hey, Mr. Jervis guy, how you doing there? So same scenario, except, okay, there was a motion to eliminate, and we said, okay, we can't have the jury hear this, right? Hear this piece of evidence. And again, the prosecutor says, oh, shit, I'm going to lose. I got to end this now, and I need a do-over, okay? So then he just spits it out, or he asks the witness a question to get the witness to spit it out, and he does it on purpose. And then the judge goes, up, we got a mistrial. So the defense attorney, knowing the same thing the prosecutor knows, namely the prosecutor was losing the case, says, Your Honor, I want you to declare this to be an intentional mistrial. Namely, I want you to declare that the DA intentionally wanted the mistrial so he could have a do-over because he was losing the case. Generally, judges are very hard-pressed to do that, but I've seen it done. Not in any of my own cases, but I have seen it done. In one case, I asked for an intentional mistrial. The judge told me he wasn't going to give me one. But I thought it was I ended up getting a not guilty after the jury came back anyway. But still, I thought it was an intentional mistrial thing. So then what happens if the judge says it's an intentional mistrial? That means double jeopardy kicks in because it says, okay, you can't try a person twice for the same crime. So now what the Supreme Court said in this 4-3 decision is that the judge should have declared a mistrial when the victim, the 4-year-old girl, wouldn't take the oath to be sworn in as a witness. Okay, the judge said, well, that's tough shit. She can't testify. That's on you, state. Prove your case some other way. So instead of declaring a mistrial, you should have said, okay, little girl, you can sit down. You can't testify, state, any of the witnesses. And if they didn't have enough evidence to convict, then the jury would have come back not guilty, and the state would have just had to live with it. But instead, the judge declared a mistrial, probably the request of the prosecutor, and then I guess the defendant appealed, saying, "Hey, he shouldn't have given him another do-over because it wasn't like she wasn't available, it wasn't like she wasn't there. She just refused to take the oath, and that's that. And there you go. So, and that's an interesting case." Yeah. So it's one of, tough cases, there's an old saying, tough cases make bad law. Meaning that, okay, this is a tough case, all right? You wanted this girl to get justice, right? And then maybe you would have twisted it around so that she would have. So you would have said, no, we're going to let the state retry it. But then that sets a bad precedent, okay? So that would be bad law. So this is good law, bad outcome. But at least the law survives. All right, let's see here. Justice Neil Gorsuch. Go figure, another legal issue. 2 for one night. Hey, great douchebag. How you doing there? Good seeing you. All right. Justice Neil Gorsuch makes waves during a second term on the Supreme Court. Oh, let's see what he's up to. The Neil Gorsuch. Da-da-da. All right, let's see. Alex Hoyer, again, of the Washington Times. This is from about a week ago. Supreme Court has completed what observers said was a rather drama-free year of oral arguments, though one of President Trump's justices did stand out. It was Justice Brett Kavanaugh. It wasn't Justice Brett Kavanaugh completing his first term on the bench, but Justice Neil Gorsuch in his second full term. Excuse me a second, let me get some water. Hold on. All right, hold on. Well, since I stopped to get some water, let me get a cigarette also. Hey, douchebag. All right, let's see what we got here. So, from challenging precedent to prodding Congress to do its own work to settle disputes, Justice Gorsuch made waves from the far end of the left side of the dais. In one high-profile case over a large World War I memorial cross set in a public park, he wondered why religious liberty law bowed so deeply to those who take offense. He wrote, "We have to tolerate one another." Sitting next to Justice Gorsuch was Justice Sonia Sotomayor, President Obama's first pick for the High Court, who also strengthened her voice this year, becoming a more vocal advocate for Hispanics. She's the only Hispanic on the bench, and a thorn in the side of the Trump administration lawyers. Well, your ethnicity shouldn't determine how you rule. Oh, Jesus. These people, I swear. During an oral argument, I'd give my eye teeth to be on the Supreme Court. And I guarantee you, if I ever had, which I never will, but if I was, I wouldn't use my ethnicity to rule on anything, or my gender. You're given that opportunity to be able to rule on some of the most important, and not some of the most important issues of the day, the ones that make it to the Supreme Court. Four justices have to say that it's important enough to hear, and they're limited how many they get to hear. And then you get up there, and what do? You rule based on your ethnicity. You throw all your law school, practicing lawyer, maybe U.S. Attorney's Office, whatever, then it's being on a lower bench on appeals court or district court, and then you finally get the Supreme Court. You throw it all the way because you're going to rule based on your ethnicity. Anyway, during oral argument over the Census Bureau's quest to probe Americans about their citizenship during the 2020 court, she said Hispanics were justified in worrying about the Trump administration's motives. Are you suggesting they don't have, whether it is rational or not, they don't have a legitimate fear? Well, wait a second. Even that question doesn't make any sense. She asked, this is the question she asked. Are you suggesting that they don't have, whether it is rational or not, a legitimate fear? If it's irrational, it's not legitimate. Okay? So there you go. I mean, here's a woman who's been, in the legal system for, 30 years? And she asks a stupid question like that. Justices Gorsuch and Sotomayor have also become a playful duo. During one oral argument, she reached over to pinch him, attempting to demonstrate a particular level of force in a case over when a robbery turns into a violent felony. Scotta's blog reported that Justice Gorsuch seemed bemused and mildly alarmed. The courtroom audience laughed. It's always nice to see when justices on different sides can like each other, said Kurt Levy, president of the Committee for Justice and a prominent court watcher. Mr. Levy said, for GOP-appointed justices, they can range from moderate former Justice Anthony Kennedy, whom Justice Kavanaugh replaced, to Justice Clarence Thomas, the quiet conservative. Mr. Levy said Gorsuch is planting himself on the Thomas side, but more vocal. This term I was looking for more, and I think I got it. If Thomas spoke, we would probably get equally bold and out-of-the-box thinking, Levy said. First part, Justice Thomas broke his famous silence from the bench, asking his first question since 2016 and just his second since 2006. In a case dealing with a black man appealing his murder conviction over claims the state had blocked black jurors, Thomas, the only black member of the court, wondered whether the defense had struck any white jurors. It turned out the defendant had struck white jurors, but the convict's lawyer told Justice Thomas that didn't matter, insisting the case before the High Court was only about the prosecutor's behavior. Eli Solomon, a law professor at George Mason University, said cases involving racial issues can entice Justice Thomas into participation. While it's always surprising when he asks a question because it happens so rarely, it's a little less surprising he asked one in this context. Adam Feldman, who runs the blog Empirical SCOTUS, crunched the numbers on this year's oral arguments and wrote that Justice Sotomayor was the first justice to ask a question in an oral argument more often than any of the others. She also was the most frequent second-speaking justice. Feldman wrote that the liberal wing of the court has become more active in trying to shape the oral argument, perhaps hoping to shape the direction of the outcome. For example, Justice Ginsburg, who missed weeks of oral arguments while recovering from surgery, was back in the thick of things, jumping right into the questioning in an employment discrimination case in April. Shows some particular interest, Mr. Feldman said. Justice Kavanaugh, meanwhile, had a mostly quiet term of oral argument, though he did draw attention in March when some court watchers wondered whether his questions suggested he would join the bench's liberal justices to rule against partisan gerrymandering. The case challenged extremely irregular maps that pack one party's voters into districts while spreading out the other party's voters, giving them more chances to win seats. Kavanaugh wondered whether there wasn't a right enshrined in the 14th Amendment that representation be divided proportionally to the number of votes each party gets rather than by who wins a particular district. Why can't the Equal Protection Clause be interpreted to require something resembling proportional representation, he asked. Conservative commentators were gassed, with one National Review piece saying there was no room for the European-style system of our Constitution. That's an interesting little story here. All right. Here's a fun story from the Washington Examiner. The reason why I bring this story up is, hold on, I don't know why this is. Lamar Odom used fake penis to pass Olympic drug test. And the reason, you may wonder, why is Carl bringing this story up? The reason why I'm bringing it up is because Lamar Odom, and you'll find out later in the story, was at a brothel. They don't say Pahrump, Nevada, but he was in a brothel in Pahrump, Nevada. Well, not actually in Pahrump, but right outside of Pahrump. We don't have any brothels in the town, but just outside the town. And that's Khloe Kardashian's husband, and supposedly he spent like $70,000 on coke and everything else under the sun, and they actually had to call the ambulance to come get him because he almost died. He OD'd, okay? So, it was pretty hairy. We only get news stories up here covering us when Link Me sent you an email. Oh, okay, hold on. Let me get you there. So I saw you there. Okay, hold on. You sent me an email? Hold on. Let's see. Yep, there we go. Okay. Do. 857. All right, on its way. Dump. Now remember, Effie, when you come in, you're not going to hear me right away. In fact, let me just get this up here. Boom. Yep, there you are. All right, so we'll sit here while we wait for, what's this, 50 pounds in, what is this, 60 days. Yeah, this thing keeps punching up on the back end of this for some reason. Let me find out why. Hold on. Let's... Oh, there's Effie. Okay. Okay, hold on. I'm going to try to get this stupid thing off here. All right, Effie, you're on. You got a hot mic. Up, hold on.
Hi, sorry, I had to go turn off my fan.
Okay, hold on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, hold on. Hold on.
It was noisy.
Why is this still up there? I don't know why that's still up there.
I'm sorry I interrupted your fake penis story.
No, that's okay. Let me just find out why this is still up here. Oh, there it goes. Okay. All right. Boom. All right, there's Effie Real. Effie, you're on. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great.
Fantastic.
Did I convince you?
About the gladiator fights?
Did I convince you I'm doing great?
Well, yeah, you got your thumbs up and everything, so yeah, definitely doing great.
Good, my acting lessons are paying off then.
No, you're doing
That's
fine.
what it's all about. Fake it till you make it.
But, yeah, so what did you want to discuss tonight?
I'm commenting all over the place in your comments because half of what you talked about has got me ticked off now.
Oh, well, okay. Go ahead.
Wait, go ahead and finish your penis story because I'm sure that's hilarious.
Oh, well, no,
I don't
was
want to
just going to
interrupt.
say what happened was, what he did was, before the 2004 Olympics, he knew he was going to test hot for marijuana because he'd been smoking weed all summer. Remember, it was off season, right? So they said, oh, by the way, it's like just a week before, he said, you have to take a drug test to go to the Olympics. Well, he didn't know that ahead of time. Well, marijuana stays in your system for like 24 days. So he bought a fake, big black dildo, and I guess he hollowed out inside or whatever, and then, or a hollowed one, and then he had his trainer pee into it, and then they even tested to make sure it was warm, so he kept it inside his pants to keep it warm, the pee warm, and then sure enough he pulled it out, and what he had to do, he said he had to keep squeezing it to, get the tinkle out. And then sure enough they ran the test right away. They have it in a cup, and the cup showed negative for any drugs or anything. So that's how he went to the Olympics.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, I know.
Save us from the idiots.
I know.
And he thought in his mind he could get away with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a big black dildo specifically.
Well, he's a black guy.
He wanted anatomically correct and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well.
So who was the unfortunate soul that discovered said phallus?
Well, no, I mean the doctor was.
Yeah.
I mean, the doctor was standing 2 feet behind him. I mean, he wasn't like over there grabbing it and seeing if it was real or not. I mean, he wasn't required to do all that, so he was able to get.
Just for accuracy's sake, I want to make sure we have all the details correct because it's so necessary. I mean, it's not like anything else is going on or anything.
Right.
But I just want you to be able to complete your story.
Tell me some of the other stories that ticked you off. What ticked you off tonight?
So funny. Let's go backwards. Let's start with the Justice of the Supreme Court, firstly stating that she deliberates based on her ethnicity. So here's my legal question. Can we impeach her for that?
Well, nobody's going to.
Why?
Well, no, I mean, it has to be pretty. I think. What do you got? Something on in the background? You have your YouTube on in the background?
Me?
Yeah, I'm hearing something in my headsets. Maybe nobody's hearing it though. Out there in YouTube land.
Let me check. No, my sound's off.
Huh. Wonder why. Okay, maybe I'm just. Oh, you know what? It's not you. No, it's me hearing what's going on inside. So you're good. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. You're good. But anyway, no. I mean,
blame the color commentator.
No, to impeach a Supreme Court justice, I mean, it has to be pretty nasty. Because remember when they were talking about impeaching Kavanaugh, and you haven't heard that since. I mean, even the people in the Supreme Court were coming out against it, saying that's ridiculous. You know, I mean.
Well, yeah, because it's their job. So.
Yeah, I mean, you give these guys a great deal of leeway. I mean, look, if you want to fight him, the time to fight him is at the confirmation hearing, which Thomas got a big one. Kavanaugh had a huge confirmation hearing. God, I mean, I don't know how much more huge you can get than that. That was pretty nasty.
Yeah, but Queen LaRaza didn't because she was Obama's appointee.
Right, and even Lindsey Graham said that. I remember you saying, hey, if you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them I said hi because I voted for both of them. You know, I voted for both of these guys on the Supreme Court because, you know, Republicans will do that. Okay, look, elections matter. You won. You get to pick the Supreme Court. We don't like it. But you know what? When we win, we expect you to vote for our guys, which, of course, then they don't. They never vote for our guys. We only vote for their guys.
I think just an admission that she votes based on her ethnicity should disqualify her from sitting on any bench.
Well, she didn't admit.
But hey, what do I know?
No, she didn't. She didn't admit. She didn't go, I'm going to rule on this way because I'm Hispanic and I'm going to find in favor of Hispanics. Just that she brought up. She kind of leans towards empathy for fellow Hispanics, which she shouldn't be doing. I mean, you shouldn't be finding empathy based on anybody's race or gender or religion, anything else. If you're Catholic and there's a Catholic in front of you, you shouldn't say, "Oh, you're Catholic too. Hey, how you doing, fellow Catholic? Tell me how I can rule in your favor." No, you know, the justice is supposed to be blind. You know, Lady Justice wearing the blindfold with the scale of justice in the one hand and the sword in the other. You know, you're not supposed to be seeing. Yep. You know, you're supposed to take the facts and apply it to the law. That's it. You know.
That's it. Which is why I was asking, how can we impeach this broad?
You
because
can't.
That is
Stop it.
profoundly an un-American stance.
No. Look, I like our system.
Yes.
I like that it moves slowly. I like
her.
I know.
She doesn't like our system.
No. Well, okay, look. He won. Okay? Obama won in 2008 and he gets to pick justice.
Right.
That's just the way it goes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then so Trump wins, he gets to pick justices. If a Democrat wins, they'll get to pick justices. I think that's fair. Now, the confirmation hearing shouldn't be about how you're going to rule on this policy or that policy. That's irrelevant. It should just make sure they're qualified. Okay, if they're qualified, of course, I mean, these people should come out, yes, I'm going to pick conservative justices. You know, well, actually, Trump said it. He's the only one who said it ahead of the election because he gave you the list of the judges he was going to decide. He gave him that list. But Obama could say the same thing. Hey, I'm going to pick liberal justices. I'm a liberal, stupid. Of course I am. Just be honest. American people know that. So, I mean, whoever's running, like the Democrats running in 2020, they shouldn't say, well, we're going to pick people for this or that. No, they should, look, I'm a liberal. I'm going to pick liberal justices. Okay? So elections matter. If you want liberal justices, vote for me. American people vote for them. They get to pick liberals. They vote for us.
Okay, Part B. Then she went on to make a statement that sounded like she had the reasoning skills of a 3-year-old. I don't remember the exact quote, but she basically said, if you have an imagined fear, we should still take that fear seriously.
Well, basically what she said was, she asked, I guess the Solicitor General, she goes, well, I mean, when did you have to admit that they have a fear, whether it's rational or not, that we should take their fears as being legitimate? Well, you can't take somebody's fear as being legitimate if it's not rational. I mean, if it's an irrational fear, then why would you take it to be
Hence my
legitimate?
concern.
Yeah.
I mean, that is illogical to a profound degree. So I'm wondering, do we have any kind of, oh, is this justice maybe on the verge of some kind of mental collapse or Alzheimer's incident or
No,
something? I mean,
no,
we have nothing to save us from this nonsense?
no, no, we don't.
Well, Carl, that sucks. What
No,
can
I
we
mean,
do about
you
that?
get bad justices. You get justices who write stuff, who say things that you go, what the hell was he saying? What was he
If
writing?
she starts saying, if they imagine aliens from Mars landing in their backyard, we should take that seriously.
No. Okay, look.
We have no recourse if she says that.
Okay, look. There's only
Is
been
that what you're
three U.S.
saying?
Okay, hold on. In the entire history of our constitutional republic, there's only been 3 U.S. District Court judges impeached. Only 3 in 230 years. Okay? Think about that.
Okay.
There have been no Supreme Court justices or Circuit Court of Appeal justices removed. And there's a reason for that. You want to have separation of powers. So, okay, look, they can make a good pitch on Thomas. Thomas has only asked 2 questions since 2006. Well, what's he doing while he's sitting there? I mean, is it him writing the decisions or is it his clerks? He's not
I'm
engaged.
okay with that.
No,
I
no.
mean, I'm
Well,
okay
of course
with
you're okay with that
all
because
of
he's on
them
our
being
side. But he's
scrutinized.
obviously not engaged. I mean, I've never been in front of a Supreme Court or appeals court where.
No, no, no. I'm not okay with. No, no, no. You misunderstand.
Oh, okay.
I'm okay with scrutinizing him too. I'm okay with it if it's a standard that is applied to all of the justices, which is to say, are you doing your job and are you an idiot? And I don't mean that in the sense of I disagree with you, therefore you're an idiot. I mean, are you losing brain function because maybe you're a little over the hill? Or maybe you drink a little much. Maybe, are they being drug tested?
No.
Well, what the hell? I mean, I do some
Maybe they're all
stuff that
doing weed
pertains
together.
to
Maybe they're all
things that
smoking weed
are
together.
security issues, and I have to be background checked. I have to be tested, and I'm not sitting on the highest bench of the land here.
Well, that's true. No, look, I understand.
Where's
I
our
definitely understand your
standards?
argument. Well, no, I understand your argument. I understand your argument, but the
Thank
danger is.
you. Thank
No.
you for validating my anger.
Well, no. I totally understand your argument, but here's the danger. You know where the danger is? Danger is the political whims of the Congress. You know, I mean, say for instance, the Democrats took the Senate, and they don't like Kavanaugh, they don't like Gorsuch, for whatever reason, or they have a good pitch on Thomas, saying, hey, look, this guy's only asked 2 questions since 2006. Maybe there's something wrong with the guy, so we got to get him out of there. Okay, then that whole separation of powers. You know, that's why this whole impeachment talk about Trump is scary because, like you have elections and you have, Article 1, that's the House and the Senate, Article 2, that's the president, and they shouldn't be trying to get rid of each other like through some kind of process that's not part of the election process. That's scary. So the same thing with the Supreme Court. Okay, say again the Democrats take the Senate. And say they take it by big. Like say they take it like by 2008 numbers, filibuster-proof majority, the Senate, they take the House, and maybe in 2008 they said, hey, let's get rid of Thomas, and they start impeachment proceedings, and they get, lo and behold, they grab 7 Republicans, and they get 67 votes in the Senate, and they impeach Clarence Thomas, okay? Because, again, at that time, he hadn't asked any question in a couple of years, and even before 2006, he only had asked 1 or 2 questions before that. The guy just never does it. He never asks questions. So that's scary because now
Don't they have a job description though? I mean, in the sense that if you perform your duties, you're doing your job, but if you don't perform your duties, you get fired like the rest of us.
Well, you really want that court to be independent. You really don't want anybody worrying about a job performance review to stay on the Supreme Court. You want them to be independent where they know, hey, look, I can write a decision that it's not going to be popular. In other words, the masses aren't going to like it. But, like for instance, this Roe versus Wade thing. Okay, if this comes up in front of the Supreme Court, half the country is going to be pissed off, regardless of the decision, right? And the other half,
Yeah.
So, okay, now if they're out there looking like, oh shit, I got a job performance review, and I know half the people are going to vote against me or say I shouldn't be there, maybe we'll just duck the question. We won't grant certiorari. Remember now, it doesn't automatically go to the Supreme Court. 4 justices of the Supreme Court have to say, like the appellate court will make a decision, and 4 justices of the Supreme Court have to grant certiorari to the losing side. Losing side then takes it to the Supreme Court and says, hey, we want you to look at this. Well, of all those guys, like they're all smoking weed together in the conference room, doing their drugs, and they say, oh, shit, man, we don't want to get in trouble. Okay, nobody vote to hear this. And then the appeals court decision would stand at that point. So we don't want them worrying about it. We don't want them looking over their shoulder. We want it to be as independent as possible.
Yeah, but racial supremacy has no place on any bench.
I agree.
Much less the Supreme
totally agree.
Court.
I totally agree. It shouldn't be part and parcel of the deliberating process. Totally agree with that. But elections matter.
Reversing back to the next story that you covered.
Yeah, go ahead.
The bratty students at the so-called Christian, was it a Catholic or a Christian college?
It was a non-denominational Christian school.
Non-denominational, okay.
Yeah.
I just briefly said embarrassing bad parenting. But it reminded me of something else that happened. There was a huge right to life, I think it was in Washington State, this was a handful of years ago, a huge concert that was in a stadium. There were thousands and thousands of people there peacefully attending the concert and protesting in conjunction with attending the concert. Uh-huh. And then there were a couple of dozen anti-protesters there.
Uh-huh.
And all of the mainstream media did was focus on the anti-protesters. And so these handful of whiny nutburgers walk out on their commencement speech, and they get all the press. And in the meantime, the vice president gets a standing ovation by the vast overwhelming majority of attendees.
Right.
And it just seems to me, not only do we need positive press, but we need to focus on positive things. Because that's a story. In other words, why do the squeaky wheels always get all the attention?
Because we give it the attention.
And I'm sorry?
Give it the attention.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, let's say I had a media outlet, like a newspaper, in the sense of electronic newspaper, of course.
Right.
I don't know what we call them now.
Okay, look. Okay,
you just call them the Times or whatever.
Here's a great example. Okay, mm-hmm. My show, the very sober show, right? So we don't get a lot of attention initially. People watch during the course of the week, but initially we don't. And that's okay, because we're not flashy, right? We don't go blah. We don't do scary. I don't do clickbait stuff. Like for instance, like my headline for this live stream tonight, I didn't say Iranian militia, blows up U.S. embassy in Iraq. Okay, I didn't even say Iranian militia did it. I asked the question, did they do it? Okay, now if I wanted clickbait, mm-hmm. I say Iranians attack, embassy, blow up something. I could have done that, and there's your clickbait. So people are attracted to the negative stuff. People are attracted to the sensational stuff. It's human nature. So go ahead, though, as far as, like, if you owned a electronic newspaper or something.
Well, I would say lead, because you can still do a sensational story in the positive. For example, back when the Tea Party was making all of the waves.
Back in 09, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was earlier than that because, they were making waves earlier. They started under President Bush.
Okay.
And so they were out there doing their thing back then.
Okay.
We can't really go by mainstream press, remember. This is kind of the point, I guess. But what I'm trying to say is when there are just overwhelming numbers of people attending events like this, just protests that just dwarf leftist protests, by and large. And yet the only people that get the press are the anti-protesters, the leftists, in other words, the ones that come like nowadays with their black outfits and start, trouble. Those people get the attention. But but that's a story, you know. Um, I don't remember how many thousand people were on the mall back in '08 or was it '09 when the Tea Party had that big rally.
Yeah, no,
But
there was
it
quite
was
a
just
few. It was quite a few. It was a lot of people out
a
there,
lot of
for sure.
people.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it was a lot more people that live in my like whole county, but um, standing in one place and leaving the place as clean as when they arrived. You
Yeah,
know,
no, that's
I mean,
the right. When we protest, we always clean up after ourselves. Yeah, we
we
never
clean
leave a
up
mess.
after us.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the mainstream media, the lamestream, the drive-by media, whatever you want to call them, they give front page. Oh, there were like 8 people with cardboard signs standing outside of some criminal's trial, and they get like front headline news.
Right.
And 80,000 people standing somewhere, they get no attention whatsoever. So yeah, my
Yeah.
point was, if I had a major media outlet, I think the numbers would lead. That would be huge. And say why it's big. This is the biggest event since whatever Kennedy
Well, it was
assassination or whatever.
like conservative talk radio is really popular. Liberal talk radio couldn't get off the ground. That's when Maddow was
Right.
on it, and that senator from Minnesota, the comedian who ended up resigning. They couldn't get their radio show off the ground. So I mean, certain venues, I guess, are better for conservative versus liberals, and vice versa. So, well, plus the mainstream media is always going to cover the liberal protests, whether you, like you said, you have 8 people there or 80,000 people on the conservative side. The liberals are going to get the attention.
Exactly.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's the bias. YouTube has a bias. Same thing. They'll favor the liberal outlets, CBS News, NBC, ABC over Fox. They'll favor it over, of course, YouTube content creators, conservative YouTube content creators. So, I mean, how we deal with that, other than starting our own YouTube site platform, which is like, anybody got a couple of $1 billion laying around?
Third question.
Yeah.
Have you checked out the One America network that the president has been referring to that's ticked off the lefties? Because, oh no, there might be another Fox out there, and they're very anti that.
No, I subscribed to that a while back, and then I
Yeah.
haven't watched.
So what's your
Bannon.
judgment on them?
Yeah, well,
I don't know anything about them.
it's kind of amateurish, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
And some of the reporting it's a lot of commentary in the reporting. I mean, it's
So
like
it's more bloggy.
yeah, like it's like Don Lemon except on the right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I can get that anywhere.
right. That's what I'm saying. I can get that anywhere. I don't need to go watch that. I want the news, and then I'll make up my mind. I don't need you to tell me how to think. And just because it's somebody
Okay.
who I agree with, I still don't want you to tell me how to think. I'll figure it out. Just give me the facts, give me the news. Put some commentary. I mean, I watched Tucker, I watched Laura, I watched Sean. Okay, I like the commentary, but when you watch them, it's kind of like amateur hour. It's like it's like watching Don Lemon. Like, how amateurish
Okay,
Don
I was
Lemon
just
is.
curious. I haven't checked them out.
Yeah,
So
like,
I wanted to know if you had.
Yeah, like how amateurish Don Lemon is. It's like that, except on the right. Sean Hannity. I mean, he put together a really good show. Tucker, of course, fantastic. Laura does a great show. I mean, so
Sean
you get
gets
the
a little
commentary, but-
repetitive.
What?
Sean Hannity gets a bit repetitive for me.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I mean, I watched
He talks
Tucker and
over his
Laura.
guests too much.
Yeah. Well, he interrupts, probably like I
Drives me
do.
crazy. Nah, you're right. You're just dealing with the setup at hand. But Sean has this interview style I noticed back in the day. It's nothing against what he's saying, but it's that he has this opening monologue, and then when he's talking to his guests, and he gets excellent guests, which is why I always listened to him back when I was driving a lot. I seemed to always run into his time slot when I was driving, and to places. I had learned his thing, listening to him. And what he does is he has this really cool opening monologue, which is very interesting. He's very concise and he's good at it. But then he would, whatever his guest was, no matter what subject they came to speak about, which often didn't coincide with his opening statement, he would interrupt them to say, "Did you hear what I said at the beginning of the show?" And then he would redo his whole opening statement to the person on the phone. And you're like, "We just heard you say all that. And now you're taking up your guest time saying it again to your guest." Drove me crazy about him. It's like, I love you, Sean, but stop doing that.
Right.
But,
right.
you
Well,
know,
yeah, no, he'll have a good guest on, and the guest has got to make a really good point, and then he just starts interjecting.
And he says stuff he's already said. That very show makes me crazy. Yeah. So, you know, maybe I'm picky.
Well, what do you think about Tucker? What do you think about Tucker Carlson?
I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he's got a better style because he does kind of lean back and let the people say what they want to say. And I think he enjoys letting people say what they want to say because just like Sean, he gets lefties on his show and he lets them express themselves, but he doesn't interrupt them as much. And then he sort of reels them in. And I think he's better at taking what they've actually said and playing off of it, which is a skill. You know, not everyone has that. And he's pretty firm on what he believes, you know, which makes him more of a commentator than anything. But
did you see the show where Laura Ingraham and Britt Hume and what's his name came on to celebrate his 50th birthday?
No, I don't watch TV. I don't watch too much of straight, like, hours of news. I get clips of it and things, and sometimes I'll watch it here or there, but no. I had to, you know, compromise and let my roommate get satellite in the house, but I didn't want it.
Oh, you didn't want the satellite?
No, I cut myself off from television in 2007.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the only TV I watch, you know, is Fox News. In fact, you know, the TV in my man cave, if you go up there right now, you'll see it's just Fox News.
The Carl Cave.
The Carl Cave. Yeah, the Carl Cave.
Well,
yeah, I mean, that channel's been on
I
there
get enough clips, though.
Like a year.
From the, you know, from YouTube and from other people taking clips of the news programs. And I prefer that anyway because I get clips from across the spectrum that way, not just from Fox. I get clips from other shows, and otherwise, how would I know what they're saying on the left stream? I wouldn't know. So, you know, it's thankfully shows like Mark Dice do that for me and sift through all of that and, you know, compile it into a subject so I don't have to watch it. And I can get clips and get the gist of what they're saying, and it's nice. So I don't want to have to watch all that. Yeah. I don't think it's good for you anyway. It's too much. You know, I start to get like overwhelmed and depressed because, as we were saying, people, they run with the negative, or the most egregious or the most crazy, or, you know, it makes you think the whole world's crazy. And
right.
Yeah, who wants to live in clown world?
All right, hold on. Laura said I'm echoing, so let me see why I'm doing this.
Am I echoing?
No, just me. In fact, I can hear myself coming back. That's what I was hearing. So let me see where I can do that to fix that real quick here. I wonder why I'm echoing. Let's see.
Trying to find my tab. I was...
That, and hold on, let's see, maybe something over here.
Am I on hold still?
No, you're still on. No, you're on. You got a hot mic. You're on.
Yeah, I know. I just said hold on. I didn't want to talk.
No, go ahead and talk. You're good. While I tell you what.
Okay.
Go ahead and say what you're going to say while I fix this.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Effie show. Now the party's getting started.
There you go.
Not really. I have one more thing, another thing I wanted to bring up. You were mentioning that most of the people that have been given a court date to come back and have their request for asylum be heard or not heard, or granted or not granted, rather. You were mentioning now, why would they come back? They're not going to come back. Well, apparently it's been an idea floated out for the last year by the leftists that 80 to 90% of them do come back. That has been the thing that they've quoted. I've been tracking it down, these articles about this. So a lot of lefties have been saying, oh, 80% or 90% of these people do come back. Now, I don't see how they could know that, considering the waiting list is like over 2 years at this point. Nevertheless, that's what they've said. But I tracked down, because Lindsey Graham is trying to get this fix the border crisis kind of legislation he just introduced, I think on Friday.
Yeah.
And part of what the statistics that got revealed as part of that, sorry, I'm trying to find the exact quote. Okay, put my old lady specs on. On average, out of every 100 aliens subject to expedited removal who claim a fear of persecution, only about 12 will ultimately be granted asylum. So at this point, 12% are even eligible. Around half of all aliens who make a credible fear claim are subsequently placed in removal proceedings do not even actually apply for asylum. So the ones that are saying they're going to apply, half of them don't even apply. Then, this is the kicker, the number of aliens who do not show up to court, are ordered and removed in absentia, has soared. 17,200 removal orders issued in absentia in the first quarter fiscal year of 2019. So there you go. 17,200 of them in the first quarter of this year didn't show up.
Wow.
So they were deported in absentia, basically.
Yeah,
but they're in the wind.
That's pretty crazy.
But they're in the wind, so what you going to do?
Well, no, you can't do anything. I mean, you're stuck. You know?
Yeah.
So, hey, do you?
I was involved with stuff where things were issued at a bench. A bench warrant was issued on. No, a bench order was issued against a particular individual who didn't show up, and nothing happened. It's not like they go track them down, and that's a citizen where they know where they live, much less an illegal that you don't know where they are. What are you going to do?
Right. Hey.
And they're hiding in some sanctuary state somewhere.
Hey, so do you hear me echoing over there? Am I echoing?
Are you asking me because I can only hear you through the app? I can't hear you. I don't have YouTube turned on.
Okay, because Laura says I'm echoing. Well, first, Forbidden said there was no sound, and I know there was sound. And then Laura said I was echoing, and then Shauna said it was good. So now I don't know. So we'll see. I'll tell you what. Hold on a sec. Let me check something real quick. Hold on. Yeah, I just checked. I just checked on YouTube. I just listened to YouTube on the delay. Yeah, I didn't hear an echo.
Yeah.
So I think we're good to go. You know, I get paranoid because when you first start all this, you get your big thing is the sound, the audio.
Well, you put a lot into this. I know you have a lot of equipment that you work on and keep everything balanced.
So when somebody says you're echoing,
I want it to work right. I get it.
Yeah. So you're like, shit, what? But no. But I just.
We're working on this for hours today. Yeah, yeah.
But
you missed the whole show. My cat came over here, killed a fake bird, rolled up in a rug, got him stuck in the rug, jumped out, ran that way. I don't know what happened after that. It's a whole drama.
Were you filming that?
Camera wasn't turned on him.
Oh, too bad. You missed
it. I got entertained.
Okay. So, well, yeah, I'm not a big fan of cats, except for the two I
Oh, here's
have.
my tools. I just realized you can see
I'm
my
about to
tools,
say,
some
it
of
looked
them.
like you had all these knives and axes and those little curvy sling
Yeah.
blade things, and chopping people
Yeah,
up
if I
kind of
was in the
stuff.
UK, they'd probably raid me.
Yeah, yeah. You like right? They have
I
limitation
got
on knives.
spoons in the drawer, too, so you know I'm dangerous. Because they're taking spoons.
Right.
I love the
Wait,
UK, but
wait,
they're
hold it.
gone.
Are they seriously taking spoons now, or are you just making that
They
up?
took spoons. There was a picture. You didn't see the picture?
No, I missed that.
Oh, you gotta pull it up. You gotta
Oh,
find
Jesus.
it. It's just this week.
Spoons.
They collected a stash of dangerous weapons. There was a
Spoons.
spoon right in the middle of it,
Wow.
and some other nonsense. Butter knives too.
That's crazy. Let me see if I can pull that up.
I
Let's
can't
see.
even say it's crazy anymore. My crazy meter is already full up, and now it's just, well, we're in clown world, honk honk.
Right.
Hold on to something that's bolted down because it's all upside down. Gravity's going the wrong way.
Hold on. Let me get there.
So yeah, they might get me for my. I don't know, what would they get me for? My scrapers. Yeah,
So
they're a
you
little
say it was
dangerous, I guess.
spoons in the
Especially the
UK.
plastic ones.
Okay, let me see if I can pull that story up. Hold on.
Like, they can't be trusted. You know, the paint roller, you could take off the fuzzy part and then it's got that pointy end, and you can't have those just loose in society.
Wait, hold on.
But milkshakes are good. You can throw milkshakes on people in the UK. Nothing will happen to you.
Well, I punched up spoons. Weatherspoons. JD Weatherspoon. No, I don't see
Hold
anything.
on.
Oh, here we go. UK
I shall
police.
help you.
Hold on.
Oh,
UK
you found
police.
it.
I found it. The American Mirror. All right.
That's it.
Let me pull this up for everybody. Hold on. All right. We're gonna put. Hey, I'm curious. When I put this story up, let me
Yeah.
know if you can hear me, because I'm gonna put the story up and I'm gonna put us into a little box and see if that works. All right. So hold on. I'm just curious if that works. Hold on. All right. Can you hear me, Effie, or no? Nope. Yes, not. Okay. Well, it doesn't work. All right. Okay. Can you hear me? No. Okay. Hold on.
You the whole time.
You could hear. Oh, you could hear me. Okay. I
I
couldn't
can
hear
hear you
you.
the whole time.
Okay. I couldn't hear you. Were you talking? Were you
No,
talking?
not really.
Okay. Good. So
Nothing. No.
maybe I could hear you. Okay. Let me cover this story real quick. All right. Hold on. Let's see. Where'd it go? Well, no, that's not my story. Arr. Oh, hold on.
Do you want me to test if you can hear me?
No. Well, yeah. After I cut over, then say
Okay.
something. Okay, hold on. Not yet.
Okay.
Gotta pull it up. All right. All right. Say something. See if I can hear you. Nope. Can't hear you. All right. Well, women should be seen and not heard. So obviously, this is God's doing and not mine. So anyway, we'll cover the story real quick. We'll jump back to you. Hold on. All right. UK police see spoons, serving forks, spatula, meat skewers, and weapon sweep. Police in the United Kingdom want the public to know they're working to combat violence on city streets where ordinary kitchen utensils transform into deadly weapons, some more deadly than others. Yesterday, we concluded weapon sweeps, dealt with a person injured from a van. Cache weapons consisted of butcher knives, big blades, fencing sword, machete, bread knives, meat skewers, and letter opener, sharpening steel, bread knives, serving forks, a spatula. Wow. And police didn't want the cash to fall into the wrong hands. These effing spoon and butter knife in the photo. UK has gone mad. Tim Pool added. Oh, Tim Pool. Okay. They chose to include the spoon. There's a spoon in there. All right. Let me get back. Boom. All right. We're back. Hold on. All right.
I may or may not have provided a hand gesture for the entertainment of him.
Oh, well, that was on. That was on for sure. Yeah. Although we were miniaturized.
I know sign language.
Oh, wow.
So.
Oh, that's too bad. But, yeah, I guess Tim Pool covered that story, huh? You ever watch Tim
That's
Pool?
probably where I saw it, yeah.
Tim Cash?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably where I
watch him all
saw
the
it.
time. Yeah. No, he's good.
Yeah,
He's
it just
really
cracked
good.
me up.
Well, that
So
is
now
crazy.
every time I do dishes, I think, spoon! I had a friend used to say, when I went out to dinner with he and his wife, he had a dad joke. He'd always go, fork you! And it was like, that's not that funny. But now spoon.
Right.
That was the Tick. Remember the Tick?
No.
The superhero, the Tick? Might have been a little
Before my
millennial.
time? Was that before my time?
Yeah,
Back when
before
you
your time. I'm like probably 20 years older than you. So now I'm a comic geek, but yeah, that was the Tick is a sort of a postmodern kind of and a hero in the post. I mean, in the literal sense of postmodernism. In other words, nihilism, kind of married with dark humor.
Gotcha.
But his battle cry actually was he was sitting because he's effervescently pure and wants to be a hero, but he's also kind of his elevator doesn't go all the way to the top, so he's sitting at the lunch counter eating. What should my battle cry be? I know, and he holds up his spoon. Spoon. That's literally his battle cry.
Okay. Well, I wonder if Tim Pool
Yeah.
was Tim Pool referencing that himself, because he's a kind of a.
I don't think he did,
Okay.
but he's a young guy. He may not know that reference.
Yeah, because
Got him old.
I think he's only like 30 at most. I don't think he's over 30.
Yeah, 30's young to me now.
Well, it is.
Weird.
Yeah, to me also.
How does that happen?
I don't know. When I moved to
My baby brother, who I diapered, just got married this week.
oh,
I diapered him, and
that's
he's
terrible.
married.
Yeah,
It's
there's
just
something-
weird.
there's something wrong about that.
Changes.
Well, it is strange. Like Tucker, when they showed his birthday, he said he started having
Yeah,
thoughts about
he's 50.
mortality. 50, 50.
Yeah, that's getting up there.
Well, when you hit 50,
Yeah.
you definitely realize, and Dustin Hoffman said this years ago when I was younger, and I kind of laughed it off. But what he said was right, because when you turn 50, you realize you have more years behind you than you have in front of you. And that's kind
Most
of a weird
likely.
place. Yeah.
Let me tell you the wisdom of my mama, because mama wisdom's always the best.
Well, did she say the
But
same
she
thing?
said
What'd she say?
she said 50 isn't middle age. When people talked about middle age, she said middle age is 25 to 50. 50 is
Down
old
slope.
age because most people live to be about 75.
Right.
So literally middle age is 25 to 50.
Right.
So once you're 25, you're middle age. Sorry.
Yeah, well, if you die when you're 50, but if you live to like
Well,
75, then you're like, 37
yes.
and a half. But
Yeah.
it's funny, when I was 37, I didn't think I was middle-aged. So,
Yeah.
I know I'm past it now.
Yeah, we can fool ourselves. Then you reach a point where you can't anymore because the body doesn't cooperate.
No, your cells don't rejuvenate as fast. I mean, that's why you get like wrinkles like around the eyes and stuff. So I got like these wrinkles and stuff and shit. Because your
I
skin
took a
doesn't
surprise nap today. I was like, what happened? It's 2 o'clock.
Oh, I do that all the time. It's not a surprise.
Me
though.
too.
No, I'll be sitting here like doing research and stuff. Or I'll be watching other people's YouTube channels, or I'll be pulling up articles. I will literally, right where I'm sitting right now, I'll fall asleep and my head will be leaning forward, and sometimes I fall asleep with the headset on.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll wake up and I'm sitting just like I'm sitting now, except my head is forward. I mean, there's no mic in front of me. If my mic was in front of me, I'd
Yeah,
be
you told me that you did that before too. Yeah. I said just make sure the mic isn't going to
Right,
hit you in the eye when you fall forward.
like,
But yeah, I find myself tipping backwards like my grandpa used to do.
well,
So I go
like
that
doing
way.
that because I'm afraid I'm going to roll to the side. So I kind of just lean forward a little, and I'm pretty steady right here. It's a good couch, and I got a couch cushion behind me too. So I'm like I'm not moving. I mean, I'll wake up like literally in the same exact spot, like I haven't moved at all. You know, I'm just right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like it's funny. Like I watch O'Shea Duke Jackson's site, like Sundays. He has something called the Rumble, and I'll generally take a nap while I'm listening to it. Then it'll get loud. People start yelling, and I got the headset on, and they're like, "Whoa, what the hell, shit," you know. And so one time I woke up and I wrote to him on the chat. I'm like, "Who is that? Who's yelling?" I go, "Is that Tan?"
You woke me up.
Yeah.
It was a good dream and everything.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Fine, you know. But yeah, I fall asleep.
Stop being
right
so
here.
boisterous when I'm trying to take a nap.
So was this like the first time this happened to you? When you fell asleep like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
No, it's not the first time, but I had health stuff going on last year, so, and I'm better now, but it's not a typical thing for me. No, it's not.
Well,
not often.
Well, you work all kinds of crazy hours though, so that's not like a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, taking a nap.
Yeah, I thought I got enough sleep last night. I had like 4 hours of sleep. I thought I was good, but shoot, now I had to take a nap today. It happens rarely. I mean, I tell my friends when I was like, "Oh my God, I took a nap today." They're like, "You did?" So
No, when I was
they
younger.
know me.
No, when I was younger and I first
Yeah,
started practicing
I don't
law.
nap.
No, when I was younger, I first started practicing, I was working 13-hour days because I had the big learning curve. I mean, I had to learn stuff. And I would take a nap about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I was going to be there till 7:30, and a little 20, 30-minute nap, and then get up, splash some water on my face, drink some coffee, and boom, off I go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
I just got used to not sleeping because, well, back in the day and doing computer stuff, I worked really long hours because I was content providing on the Microsoft network. I worked for a content provider. It was a pretty major company on the East Coast who provided who did entertainment, and I did their what they called at the time new media. That was the department was called new media, but it was internet. You know, early net.
Right.
So basically, we were building the Microsoft network and some others, but that was back in the days when you could still get Prodigy.
Oh,
and
wow.
Remember that?
Yeah.
So, but I did their websites, and that, you know, it was all new. There were no editors. It was all, you know, http:// HTML, you know, so it was all it was all in a text editor in those days, except for the Microsoft stuff it was beta. It was on beta Windows 98. It was hell. It's a beta programming language on a beta Microsoft network on beta Windows 98. I wanted to throw myself in the Atlantic, but it was fun. But we didn't sleep because they're on the west. They're in Redmond, Washington. So, right. And we had the launch in 98. I don't know if you remember the Windows 98 launch, Start Me Up. They had the Rolling Stones playing Start Me Up.
No, I don't remember that, but
I
remember Windows 98 sucked. Windows 2000 sucked.
Well, it sucked to develop on it because it crashed all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, yeah. But I got a T-shirt and a keyboard from Bill Gates, so yay, I guess. Wow. Still have the keyboard. It was a good keyboard.
Wow, did he actually hand it to you? Did he hand it to you in person?
No, I was in Florida. I was
well,
here.
He didn't fly out there and say thanks, guys, for all the hard work.
My team was one of 10, and there were thousands of us. thousands of teams. My team was one of 10 that were invited. My company was invited to be part of the launch party as a content provider. There were only 10.
Oh, wow.
So consider that. Consider that in the days of now YouTube, where there's millions of content providers.
Right.
I was my team, my company was one of 10 that were invited to the launch at the Microsoft Network because what we produced was so cool. Plus we had celebrity content. Let's not kid ourselves.
Right.
But you know, they were like, "Can you get so and so to come?" I'm not going to drop names,
Right.
but you'd know them. And big in the sci-fi world, let's just say. So, we're not going to make our, but yeah, it was fun though. It was a fun job. But the reason why I lived through it, because we're working 23 hours a day, and I slept under my desk. Is Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies and Juicy Juice mixed with Diet Coke. That was my work crack.
Wow.
That's how I got through it.
Juicy Juice
Yeah.
and
Carbs.
cookies. Oh,
Carbs
man.
and caffeine.
See,
So,
when I was working a lot of hours, it was coffee.
so no, I don't nap.
Yeah. Yeah. My thing was
I don't
coffee.
do that now.
Yeah, my big thing was coffee. In fact, my paralegal I had at the time, for Christmas, he got me this big coffee set with this big, big heavy-duty coffee mug that's wide at the bottom and had a lid on it that sat on top of the desk so it wouldn't spill and stuff. Yeah, that's what he got me.
Yeah.
Because I would drink coffee from 6 a.m. to 7:30, just nonstop. Wouldn't stop drinking it.
Yep. I have love in my heart for Famous Amos chocolate chip cookies because they got me through, and Juicy Juice mixed with Diet Coke.
Oh,
So
yeah, that just sounds awful. The Juicy Juice and the Diet Coke mixed together. Jesus.
mixed together
No,
because I needed the caffeine, but I didn't like regular soda, so I had to drink diet soda because I didn't like regular, and so I wanted carbs, so I mixed the juice in to get
crazy.
the carbs.
It reminds me like my first year of law school, broke off my ass, and my nutrition would consist of a hamburger, macaroni and cheese, and a scallion. So that was my diet. And then
And a scallion?
Scallion, yeah. And then I would occasionally treat myself with a can of chili. And that was my nutrition.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's what I did for nutrition.
Was it Hormel chili with no beans?
No, it was Skag chili with beans.
Oh
I
my!
like my chili with beans. I'm sorry, if people don't
Yeah.
like that, tough. I like beans in my chili. Yeah. So that was my diet in law school. And
So
I think
I don't do those things to my body anymore. But it was a different time. I was young. I needed the money.
Right. Well, no, and plus, you're on the cutting edge. I mean, let's be honest. You're on the ground floor with Microsoft. I mean, there you are. I mean, that's got to be exciting in of itself. I mean,
Well, it wasn't ground floor, but it was near the middle bottom.
well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the first big Windows 3.0 didn't come out to what, 94, 95?
Was not 3.0 would have been 92, I think.
Oh, really?
I don't remember specifically because remember Windows 95
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
was a thing.
Okay. Right. No, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember Windows 3.0 because I remember being pissed off because they didn't give the code to
3.1
WordPerfect.
was better.
Well, they didn't give the code to WordPerfect, and so WordPerfect that had like an 85% market share went down like to 15% because it wouldn't work on Microsoft
Yep.
3.0 because they wanted you to use Word, which still sucks, in my opinion. But then
Well, I
again,
gave it all up for Unix anyway because remember the year 2000 was coming and we were all going to die. So
Oh yeah.
I could make six figures doing COBOL for banks,
Oh, you're
And,
one of those scammers. Yeah, I had a friend of mine too.
You could throw your resume out the window and make six figures if you could throw code together. You didn't even need to have gone to college. It was great. Those
Biggest
were the
scam in the
days
world.
when the
Biggest scam in
dot-com
the
collapse
world.
happened.
I had a
Blah, blah.
No, I had an old computer. I had this little. In 2000, I had a small California office. I was primarily in Nevada, and I had an old computer sitting there, like a 486, and I think it was running 95 or 3.0 or something, and I didn't do anything to it, right? and they said, "Oh, the two." Remember, the year only had two numerals, right? So they figured 99 would go back to
Yes,
zero, and it
I
break
know
everything.
what the
Yeah, you remember. You
2000
were there,
bug was.
right? So anyway,
I was
I didn't
coding it.
touch it. Well, I ended up going back like January 5th or 6th, turned it on, expecting nothing to happen. Everything punches up. Everything was fine. No problems. All the files were there, directories, everything. And
Yeah.
I was doing a
No,
case.
you were fine with the 486. The problem wasn't with the PCs. The problem really was with the. It wasn't even with computers specifically. It was with the code for large systems that hadn't been. This is before everything got put on the internet. Before, well, even intranets. So at that point, things were on mainframes, and the code was mostly like finance code that was having trouble
Oh, really?
because yeah, I worked. That's how I kind of got into the finance industry as well. And the problem was they were trying to save space in because memory is at a premium. Hard drive space is at a premium. And back in those days, this was before most PCs. When this stuff was written, PCs didn't even have hard drives. They just had floppies,
Right.
boot startup
Yeah.
disk, and
Right. Yeah. I remember those.
yeah. So I had a Windows AT. It was called a luggable. It was before. That was the first, well, one of the first portable computers. It was like as heavy as a suitcase full of 3 jugs of water. It had a handle, and you could actually pick it up and carry it, and so they considered that portable. But in the tech world, they called it the luggable,
Okay. Gotcha.
because you could
Right.
go, ah, ah,
Right.
I've
Don't.
got my portable PC.
Right. The future of laptops. There you go.
It's like the first 80 cell phone. It's like the size of a boot on your.
Right. Right.
Hello, I'm calling you from outside.
I'm on a cell phone. Do we even call them cell phones back then? What were those? Were they called cell
I think
phones?
we did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we did, because America called it a cell phone, a cellular phone. It was cellular. We weren't abbreviating yet. But America called them cell phones, and the UK they called them something else. And then we divided, and it stayed that way. So in the UK they don't call them cell phones. They
Well, I
call
remember.
they call them mobiles. They
Gotcha.
call
'Cause I
them
remember
mobiles. We
I had
just
a
we call them
beeper.
cell
I had a
phones.
beeper and a cell phone. I had a beeper.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember the beeper. I don't remember why I had it. Oh, I know I had a beeper. I had a couple of beepers. Yeah.
Okay. You're dealing
They
drugs.
were job related.
You were dealing drugs.
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
Hmm?
You were dealing
Oh yeah,
drugs.
yeah. It was all the aspirin and Tylenol,
Right.
and there's a really big market for Benadryl here in Florida because everybody's allergic to everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, it's like
I was
Texas.
the Benadryl connection,
There you go. No, it's like
especially
Texas.
back then.
Texas is like that too. Like Houston, East Texas, real
Yeah.
humid, lots of crap, just like you have in Florida. Oh, it's terrible down there. Oh, it's awful.
I
No,
might actually
Benadryl.
still have a beeper somewhere.
Oh, I know mine is
I
gone.
wonder if I could do something with a beeper. I don't know. Code it to do. I don't know. What can you do with a beeper? I'll have to
I don't
look into
know.
that.
Well,
Something.
I
I
do
don't
criminal
know. Make art
defense.
out of it.
I do criminal defense, and I remember like 15 years ago, there's one of my clients. Yeah, he had like 4 or 5, beepers and stuff. I mean, he had cell phones, but he had like
Yeah.
4 or 5 beepers. Yeah,
Yeah, that was before burner cells were available with the beepers.
yeah,
The nefarious cats had the beepers, but we had because I live in a small kind of relatively smaller county town area, and it's growing, of course, because anything south of Orlando and Florida is growing, but up until maybe 5 years ago, I kid you not, there was still a shop that had beepers written across the front of it on the main
really.
highway, like in prime retail space, not off on the side somewhere hidden in a lot, just a huge beepers shop on the main highway in the middle of downtown.
Oh wait,
And I
hold
kept
it,
driving
hold
by
it,
going,
Effie.
what?
Jervis, I'm not sure you saw this. Jervis wrote Effie, you look 30.
I look 30? Aww.
There you go.
I look 30 for such an old chick.
So in other words, in 2000, that wasn't a big scam. I mean, there really was something that had to be done for the computers to
Oh
roll
yeah,
over.
for certain industries it was real.
How about like the
Yeah,
legal
it was
profession?
real.
Because there were big law firms.
And but then for the rest of the industries it was about compliance because people like municipalities had to be compliant. Year 2000 compliance was a big deal, so people had to know how to make sure that all your software was compliant. So even if you weren't in one of the industries that was credibly threatened, you had to make sure you were compliant so that you couldn't be sued if something did indeed go wrong, that they could blame it on that.
Well, let me ask you this
And
question. Because in 2000, in fact, the day before New Year's Eve, it was like December 30th. And I was in this law firm in Orange County, and because we were working out, agreeing to documents to be admitted at trial. We're getting ready to do a jury trial. And it was 3 law firms there. And I remember we were there, and they said, hey, well, we got this agreement. Can you guys, type it up, print it out, and we'll sign it? And he goes, oh, no. We're told we're supposed to shut down, 24 hours ahead of time before this, 2000 thing hits at midnight. So we got all the computers are off, everything's off.
was it a
nothing's on.
courthouse?
No, it was a law firm, private law firm.
The law firm.
Yeah, see,
Well,
I think that was
probably
a
they
scam.
were practicing Y2K compliance. There might have been some what do you call them, regulations that they had to comply with that were, aside from having their software up to date. I didn't have to deal with that part of it, but I know people who did, and they had to. There probably was protocol that they had to follow so that they could be certified compliant. I really don't know who the governing board was, but I know municipalities had to do it for sure.
Yeah, I was just figuring they got scammed, some computer guy. See, I had a friend of mine.
Well,
I had a
I
really
think
good
there
friend.
was probably more caution than was necessary for certain industries, for sure.
Uh-huh.
But the older systems where we're talking mainframes and large collections of data that had been using the abbreviated format, they would have been in serious jeopardy if they didn't adjust those variables to 4 digits. And so that's really all it was. I mean, it was just slapping on a packet. It was really not hard coding. It's like you could get to learn how to COBOL programmer, and you had to know Unix, but you could get how to program COBOL, and maybe Fortran, maybe some other job control language, depending on the mainframe you were working on. But it wasn't that difficult for somebody who already knew how to code to get that information. Get a couple of books from your whatever those bookstores that used to be in business that aren't anymore, your local bookstore, and in like 3 months' time, you'd have enough knowledge to be making 6 figures in the late 90s. You could be 18 years old making 6 figures fixing their code.
No, I had a
So
friend
it was
of
a
mine.
wonderful time to be alive.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who was an IT
Bought my
guy.
first new car.
Oh, look at you! Look at you! So
My
let me ask you this
98
question.
Mazda 626.
Ida. Yeah, I think
It was a nice car for me. I mean, it was
Ida
nice.
626, except the rear end.
Yeah,
The
I
rear
love
end
my
used to go out.
baby.
The rear end used to go out on that. You ever have that problem? The rear end on your 626?
I never had any problems with my car.
Oh,
I miss it terribly.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
I
let me
miss
ask a
the Mazda,
question.
but I have a Honda.
So
Okay.
when you're doing all this coding, did it take you longer than it really did to get it all fixed?
No. The trick is when if you're doing. It depends on if you're working directly for someone as an employee or if you're doing contract work.
Okay.
There's a difference. Well, not really. I mean, actually, the principle's kind of the same now that I think of it. But what happens is whoever you're responsible to, your supervisor or your client, you give them an estimate of how long it's going to take and you triple it. You say, that's going to take 3 weeks when you expect it to take 1 week, so that unforeseeable circumstance, something's a little more complicated, something goes wrong, you have wiggle room and you still come out looking like a hero.
Right.
So time isn't really the issue. It's really a per job thing.
Gotcha.
I never got paid by the hour.
Well, I had a friend of mine who's an IT guy, and he hooked me up really good. But he was my friend. But he used to tell me what he would do. He'd go in, like if he got hired to put together somebody's computer system in an office or something, he'd put it together, get it done really quick, and then he'd plant a virus in there and set it.
Oh, hell.
And then set it to go off in 6 months, right? So, of course, they were happy
It's
with it.
people like that make you ask the questions you're asking me.
Right. Well, that's why I'm asking, because I knew this guy. And so he'd come in, he'd lowball what he set the office up for, and he'd get it done really quick, and they all love him. Great. And then 6 months later, they hit it with like a boot virus. So nothing, you couldn't even get it up. And he'd come in there and go, "Oh my God, it's a boot virus.
Not even a virus.
It's forever." So like he would spend the night at their office and stuff, sitting around doing nothing, eating chips, whatever. And he'd be there for like days, right? And then when he got tired of hanging out there, he would then go click, 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 boom, fixed. Everything recovered.
He just
nothing lost.
All he did was syskey them. That's something you can do in literally 5 seconds. I can show you how to do it.
That's okay.
It's nothing. It's not a virus. It's not even. It's just.
Yeah, it looks like a virus. He probably had some nasty shit like, "Oh, you have a virus,"
Because you don't want to actually put a virus. I mean, there's so many things you.
Well,
yes,
yeah.
you can. It looks. It looks like all hell's broken loose, but or basically you're locked down is really what I'm talking about. You're locked down.
Right. Well, he would lock it down.
It's not a virus.
If they brought somebody else in to look
But
at it.
I mean, maybe he did. I mean, maybe this guy just didn't care and put a virus in.
I don't know. All I know is he made a fortune doing that. And I said, and it's funny because I was young and starting out.
Well, now we have Indians for that, so we don't need homegrown scammers anymore.
You have what?
Now we have Indians for that. We don't need the homegrown scammers
Oh, the
anymore.
guys from India. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
Do that. Yeah, they're big in tech. I mean, hell, the guy who owns Google, the guy who runs Google is from India.
And back when I was doing what I was doing, they weren't. But by the mid-2000s, people were that's about when it really became big to farm out your work to India.
Yeah, because it was
well, the dot-com collapse happened also in between. So
right. So,
and, there's a lot of scammer tech firms in India.
Yeah, so in other words,
there's some sneaky stuff. I saved a guy thousands and thousands of dollars just because it was just 2 lines of code that I corrected. He's like, "You saved me $5,000 or whatever he said, 15. I think he said 15 now. I was like, "Yeah, buy me lunch, do something."
Right.
But they're actually getting very professional at scamming. It's impressive. They're like a virus. They change their tactics and keep upgrading it. It's embarrassing that so many people fall for it.
Yeah. No, I actually got the...
same people that vote, I guess.
I actually got the assistant U.S. attorney who's in charge. He's out of the Southern District of New York. He actually called me back because I had this client that was getting scammed and hacked, and she couldn't get it off. She was going to have to change everything, email address, you name it. And she wanted to do all that. So I found, somehow I worked my way through, I don't know, the Justice Department, and I got to this guy's office in New York. And I left a message. I figured he'd never call me back. And he called me back about like 9 o'clock his time. He was still in the office. And he's in charge of it for the entire East Coast. And he was telling me, he goes, "Oh, yeah, there's nothing you can do. You pretty much have to just dump everything. And really hard for us to prosecute." And they're in, like you said, they're in India, West Africa, places like that. Place you can't touch them. But yeah, he was in charge of it. I was really surprised he called me back. It was kind of cool, but he didn't give me any good news though. It was pretty sad, actually.
It's difficult, and it's difficult to get the people who can help. That like Western Union, for example, they could do a lot more than they do to help, but they don't.
As far as what, like money transfers?
Because a lot of the scammers use them to rip people's money off.
Oh, so
there are a lot of.
So they're making money on it.
They're making money on the scamming.
Well, that's funny because some client tried to pay me with Western Union, and I'm like, Carl, nobody, and they were giving her a hard time. It was like, do you know this person? Like, who is this person? And I got on the phone with them. I said, hey, man, call the state bar. They'll tell you like I'm real. Well, how do we know they're real? I said, oh well, okay, whatever. It's like stupid answer like that. It's like I'm not giving you the number. Look it up and you call them. Unless you think I hacked into your computer and I put a fake number in there. So I called the client back. I said,
Yeah, and I don't mean to directly say that it is a corporate policy to make money, because officially it's a corporate policy for them to, because this is something I know about. I'm not going to get into it, but the point is, what I do know, what I can say, is you can see it on their website, is that their corporate policy is to be cooperative. It is to be, we take scamming very seriously. We want to cooperate. We want to help in any way possible. When I tried to elicit help from them for specific things, I was stonewalled.
wow.
And they didn't care.
Wow, that's crazy.
So maybe our situation was unique, my client's situation maybe, but no, it was a major case of the runaround.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah.
You think they'd be a little more on top of it and stuff. Oh well. Well, I tell you
Yeah.
what, Miss Effie, it's about 10:30 my time. Been on about 2.5 hours.
Okay.
So I'm going to call it a night. Stay right there. Don't go nowhere. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm going to just end the stream. Let me grab the right mouse. All right. This is Carl for Carl's Opinion, and for Effie Loves America, Effie Real, also known as Effie Loves America, and her cat, saying good night to all, and we'll catch you the next time. I want to thank everybody who's been in the chat, everybody who viewed us, and who'll be viewing us later. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye. Say bye, Effie.
Bye.